yeah. My wife called me out. I'm singing. Let's do a little karaoke to start with. Norm America Show, host Rob Norm. Feeling good today. Feeling good. Yeah. Singing in my terrible voice. Let's do it. Oh, what a great song. I love, this does two things. Embarrasses me in front of everyone because I'm a shit singer, but it also upsets my wife, which is always good. So let's do it, right? It's one of my favorites. I don't know if we'll do the whole song, but... Well, I'm going out west where the wind blows tall. 'Cause Tony Franciosa used to date my ma. They got some money out there, they're giving it away. I'm gonna do what I want and I'm gonna get paid. Do what I want and I'm gonna get paid. Little brown sausages lying in the sand. Why ain't no extra, baby, I'm a leading man. Well, my parole officer being proud of me. With my old 88 and my devil on a leash. My old 88 and the devil on a leash. Well, I know karate and voodoo too. I'm gonna make myself available to you. I don't need no makeup, I got real scars, I got hair on my chest. I look good without a shirt, I will lose my composure in a high-speed chase. Well, my friends think I'm ugly, got a masculine face. I got some drag strip courage, I could really drive a bed. I'm gonna change my name to Hannibal, or maybe just Rex. Change my name to Hannibal, or maybe just Rex. Well, I know karate and voodoo too. I'm gonna make myself available to you. I don't need no makeup, I got real scars, I got hair on my chest. I look good without a shirt, I'm gonna drive all night and get some speed. I'm gonna wait for the sun to shine down on me. I cut a hole in my roof the shape of a heart. When I'm going out west where they appreciate me. Going out west where they appreciate me. Going out west where they appreciate me. Yeah, that's good for that. Did you ever see one of my favorite Rodney Dangerfield bits? He comes out and he starts singing. And he's like, what the fuck am I doing? That's how I feel. Yeah, good. We like it. Pissed off the wife successfully. Half my normal viewers probably out already. I'm a terrible karaokeist, but I love it. I enjoy doing it. Welcome to Norm America Show. Host Rob Norm. Home. I'm in a good mood. Fantastic mood. I got hair on my chest. My friends call me ugly. I got a masculine face. Also, one of my favorite cars I ever owned was an Oldsmobile. Wasn't an 88 though. Shit, what year was that Oldsmobile? I don't know. When I started dating my wife, I had this Oldsmobile, and her stepdad, sort of a mechanic. My brake line was so bad they had to like pinch it temporarily. It didn't last long after that. Look at that. Someone named tranny fluid. Yeah, tranny knows. Tom Waits, baby. It sounds like shit if you don't know Tom Waits. It sounds like shit if you do know Tom Waits too. I could bring everyone together in my hatred of me. Now, I've screwed you all over, too, with a clickbaity title. I'm going to spoil it. Yeah, Secular Talk has not agreed to debate me. But they did throw a challenge out, which I accepted, and I had a bunch of people like, but they ain't going to get back to me. You don't know Tom Waits? Brilliant. You've seen him. I bet you've seen him. He was in the movie Mystery Man. He's in a bunch of movies. I should just sing full time. I have to sing raspy voice, folks. By the way, just doing that karaoke song probably gets this channel demonetized. Book of Eli was in, yeah. He was in Dark Knight, was he? Coffee and Cigarettes, one of my favorites, where he meets Iggy Pop. They're in a cafe. It's a good scene. Coffee and Cigarettes, it's sort of pretentious, but I enjoyed it. It's like a little anthology movie. Just humorous situations where people were smoking and drinking coffee. Now, Kyle hasn't accepted the debate. So Kyle set an offer out and said, any conservatives want to debate me on basically whether or not the rhetoric from the left led to the assassination attempts of Donald Trump. I said, I'll do that. I'll happily do that. Kyle, no preparation needed. If Kyle's listening right now, I don't know what he goes by. Kyle? Mr. Talk? Whatever. If he's listening right now, we'll do it right now. I don't need any prep. No problem. But he won't get back to me. And it's not that he's afraid of me, it's that he doesn't know who I am. But that's the way it is. Most of these left-wing streamers, they'll stay in their little bubble. They have to stack the deck, so it's got to be 5-on-1 against me, or they don't want to talk to someone like me that they don't know that might be good. Instead, they'll be like, I'll talk to Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I don't know. Secular Talk's the name of his show. I don't know. So is it Mr. Talk? I don't know anything about Kyle Kulinski. I've never watched his program. So that's something we have in common. He's probably never watched my program. So, well, anyways, I'm home. We're here to talk. Let's do it. We take calls if people want, though. My call-in show is going to be tomorrow. So I would love to debate some folks on the left tonight if they would like to do it. Makes for an easy, fun, breezy show. Works best for me. So if you're listening on the left and you want to give me what for, by all means, you could call in. I would love to do it. It's always a good time. But we do have stories, all sorts of stories. Was there a bomb today outside Trump's rally? Looks like not. Debate tomfoolery on what? January 6th, that's what he wants to talk about again? Is that what he wants to debate? That's going to be I'll be 60 years old and people will be like, Rob, there's one more lefty out there you haven't debated on January 6, 2020. I know we're in the year 2045 now, but can you debate this one more lefty? January 6th. It's a very important topic. I don't know what's going on. Kyle Kulinski has not accepted my debate. I've accepted the challenge, but he has not accepted it. The 50 basis point used to be called 0.5%, right? Yeah, we can talk about the rate cut. We talk about the assassination attempt, the previous one, and the alleged one that occurred today. Where you guys want to start? Iran interfering to help Democrats in this election? There he is. My brother Jojo, what's happening? I was talking about your place the other day, Jojo. Last night I was talking about how you got those kilns right outside your place, and then near your house in the town St. Charles, they had the whole town's basically empty now, where they used to have these like brick kilns. It's a neat area, like it really is. And I don't know if Jojo did. When I was in high school, we would like sneak into those old kilns and we would drink. I don't know if Jojo ever did that, but it was weird later in life. Then he bought a house that was right across from these kilns we used to hang out in high school. So, yeah, I would say the chance of Trump flipping New York, probably not good. But what are we talking about? And then, of course, so we got the rate cut, we got the Iran interfering, we got the assassination attempt, and we got the Teamsters unions that sort of all in, without saying it, basically endorsing Trump. Those are all topics for today. Of course, anything that you all want to talk about, we could do that as well. Be happy to accept any sort of debate challenge. Call-ins, if you want to agree with me, that's going to be tomorrow's show. And then Friday we have a guest on. Let me get the name of that guest for you. In fact, it might be here. 1 second. I don't want to screw it up. I think I know. Where's my boy? Potentially criminal Sean. So let's bring up his website here. That'll be my guest Friday. So let's do that. And I have to admit, unfortunately, I haven't watched a lot of his content, but I hear he's very good, which is awesome. It's always nice to talk to a lawyer. He's on live right now with 448 people watching. That would mean that he's a bigger channel than me. Good for you, potentially criminal. So here's the link. Check it out. Check it out. Tom Fullery's out there and he wants to call in. He can call in. I'll wreck him on any topic he wants. January 6th. January 6th. It's very important. So yeah, that should be Friday around 8 p.m. It'll be a good show. So, call-ins, please wait till tomorrow if you want to call and just slightly disagree with me or if you want to agree with me. We'll take challenges tonight. People that want to debate against me. And I don't want nice people. Yeah, I mean, you could be polite, that's fine. But I want people that are real lefties that disagree with me. Or like, never Trump righties. That'd be nice. So, where are we starting? What do you want to start on? Bomb business this morning? Is that where we're going to start? Little bomb business? A yay or nay? What do you think? Bring the heat. Bam! Bringing the heater today. Yeah. Or do you just want me to sing? Do another terrible karaoke. You think we should be allowed to own exotic animals? Yeah. To some degree, you should have to show that you're able to take care of them. So, okay, let's start with this. So you can follow my X account at Rob Miller on X, as it's spelled, as you see it there. Jack says they're trying to claim the bomb thing was fake and just training. I'm from New York City. I don't believe that. I don't know. I really don't. So here's the first thing. Anytime you hear a story like that, you have to be careful. So the initial reporting came out. My first post on this was like, we'll see if this is true or not. So it was reported. Basically, I think it's at the Nassau Coliseum. So there was reporting I saw. The first thing I saw today was like, it can hold about 16,000 people. This might all be BS. I don't know. And there was a huge group of people that requested tickets. So something like 50, 60,000. So in other words, far more people requested tickets than the Coliseum can hold. And this is oftentimes something that happens at these Trump rallies where you have huge lines for a long time before the rally begins outside waiting to get in. And so this morning, I don't know what time specifically, but there was reporting that came out that there was a blue barrel that was somehow moved on the perimeter that allegedly had explosive device, a car that had explosive devices and a person seen running into the woods. That was the initial reporting. So my first take was, well, we'll see if this is true. My second take was, you have to be careful because that could mean anything. Now, let me explain to you what this could be. It could be an assassination attempt against Trump, or more likely, if these were explosives placed outside the venue, then it would, if this was a nefarious attempt, to me it seems more likely than designed to get Trump. That would be designed to get Trump supporters, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be waiting outside line. Now, it could be that he was temporarily had the explosives there and was then going to try to smuggle them into the rally. But I think more likely it would be designed to cause a mass casualty at a Trump rally with Trump supporters. That would be the more likely scenario there. However, that's just one potential scenario. Again, this is operating under the assumption that there really was explosive devices that were found there, right? So that's scenario one. Scenario two could be the exact opposite. Scenario two could be that this was a Trump supporter that wants to continue the narrative. And so, let's keep it up and we'll make it seem like there's another attempt on Trump's life. So there was no intention to detonate a bomb, but you have the explosives there so that eyeballs get on it, and then it becomes a narrative that could help Trump. Now, you might say that sounds ridiculous, but it could be. For example, if you think that sounds ridiculous, do you think there's a good chance that many of the people that called in the bomb threats to Springfield, Ohio, were actually doing so to help Kamala Harris? Seems likely. Came from a foreign core, at least to cause division. What we're being told so far, if we believe what we're being told, was those threats all came from outside the country. So this wasn't residents of Springfield, Ohio that were inspired by Trump's rhetoric. No. There was an allegation that there was explosive material found outside the Trump rally this morning. Yeah, Kyle would not beat me on this topic. I accepted Kyle Kulinski's offer, public offer for a conservative that would debate him on the rhetoric of whether against Trump and whether or not that caused the assassination attempt. It's sort of a clickbaity title because he did not get back to me. So there is no debate scheduled. But I got you watching, didn't I? And technically the topic's true. Yeah, well, the January 6th pipe bomb, that's another thing. So certainly that's a possibility. The third possibility, and this might sound ridiculous to you, but it doesn't sound ridiculous to me living in rural Pennsylvania. It could literally just be a guy that had illegal explosives in his car that didn't intend to use them for any sort of nefarious purpose. And you might be like, that sounds ridiculous. But I'm telling you right now, I know some of my redneck friends that if you just randomly check their car, you might be surprised at the sort of stuff that you would find. And they don't mean it for a nefarious, like to harm people. Some overpowered fireworks, little blasting that they're doing on their property or something like that. That's a possibility. I would admit that possibility would be pretty coincidental to be right outside a Trump rally and have something like that. The point being, though, the point that I was trying to make is we don't know if there were explosives there initially when the reporting's coming out. And even if there were, don't jump to conclusions and be like, well, this is clearly an assassination attempt against Trump. You should wait a little before you make those sort of claims. Now, it is sad that we live in a day and age where assassination attempts against Trump are becoming the norm. And so I don't blame anyone whose mind immediately goes there. I mean, it was just 2 days ago. There was another assassination attempt against Trump. So I get it. I get being like, oh shit, here we go again. And who could blame someone for thinking that? Now, reporting later came out, including from Trump's campaign that released an official statement, that this was fake news. The narrative that's now being told is there was a private citizen, in other words, someone not working at the behest of police, I believe is the narrative now, that had a bomb-sniffing dog that he was training, and the material they were using for that dog got a hit, and then someone reported, and there was a miscommunication, so it wasn't that there was an actual explosive. This was all part of an exercise to train a dog. Do people believe that? Or was there really explosives there and they're trying to downplay it? I don't know. I'm going to operate as if the official story that it was fake news, seeing as how Trump's team's saying it's fake news. I'm going to operate under the assumption that it wasn't a real explosive designed to attack Trump supporters. But I don't blame anyone who does. It's not our fault that we don't trust these people. It's their fault. They've lied to us about so many things so many times. Why would you trust them? But I don't know what I could add to like, well, I think that, if I would just say, I think that's garbage. I think the chances that they had some private exercise that was going on, and then there were reports of this guy running into the woods, and it turns out none of that's true, and it was actually just a private exercise, blah, blah, blah. That sounds ridiculous. And it does sound ridiculous. But I don't know what to add to it. I really have nothing, even the proximity. How close was it? I don't know. That's a great quote, WW. So I don't know what to add to it. It's hard to definitively, I guess the way I would put it is, does this move the needle? Like if you're If you're a Trump supporter that thinks that there's all this corruption, including in our establishment institutions, which I do believe, that basically wants to stop Trump at any means possible, you might be predisposed to saying, I think this is a cover-up. And it may be, but I'm not in that park right now. I'm not saying that this was a cover-up. I just don't know. I don't blame people for thinking that. And if you're someone who's predisposed to hating Trump and you're already going to vote against Trump, you're going to say, clearly, this was just a misunderstanding, and Trump people are always trying to be the victim, and they tried to make this into a story that it wasn't, blah, blah, blah. To those people, I say, kiss my ass. There isn't one race-baiting hoax that they haven't accepted at face value anytime it's designed to smear Trump or to smear anyone, so I don't care what those people think. But then the question is, like, well, what's an average normie think that's, like, not heavily on one side or the other? I don't know. I think it's a tough sell giving the limited information that someone like me has to be like, no, let me try to convince you that this actually was an attempted attack. Especially considering there was just an attempted, we don't need to talk about attempted or alleged because just 2 days ago we had an attempted assassination attempt. So, I don't know. So I don't really have much to add other than it's insane the normalcy that we're now getting of the attacks on Trump or the attempted attacks on Trump or Trump supporters. It's just insane. That's the world we live in now. Would anyone be surprised if there's another assassination attempt against Trump before the election? I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a Gretchen Whitmer-esque FBI incited attack that is stopped against Trump. That comes from right-wingers, like Boogaloo Boys or something, so that they could shift the narrative. Oh, see, it was fake. Or some Trump supporter that is convinced to do something shitty so that they could change the narrative. So I don't know. So that's where I'm at with that story. So I know people were interested. I still think Trump's got about a 5% chance to win. I think if Trump wins, his chance of making it the full length of his 4-year term still in office are like 25%. Between assassination attempts, impeachment attempts, maybe just getting old and having poor health, I don't think it's very likely that he makes it through a full term. I really don't. It's a shame. I did not watch Andrew on Tim Pool, no. I'm aware that they had a discussion about rights that I've had similar discussions with Andrew, but that's all I'm aware of. But I hope it went well. I'm always rooting for Andrew Wilson, so hopefully it went well, and he got some eyeballs on him that will continue to grow his channel. He deserves it. He's a good guy. So that's that story. Everybody good in that story? Next! Moving on to the next story. What did I say we'd talk about next? Iran? Now let's play the game that Democrats play. That the lefties that I talk... Oh, we'll get to explosive pages, don't worry. Kamala Harris has been publicly endorsed by Vladimir Putin, and Iran's working behind the scenes to help her campaign and the Democrats. Iran. I ran so far away. Yeah. You get that? Kamala Harris, publicly endorsed by Vladimir Putin, and now Iran's working behind the scenes. So for those that missed this story, I believe it was the State Department put out a memo today. We could bring this up if you like. I could do that now that I'm not streaming from my phone. Isn't that cool? Not State Department, I guess FBI. Joint ODNI, FBI and CISA statement on the Iranian election influence efforts. This is from today, September 18th, 2024. Today, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency released the following statement. Since the 19th of August, 2024, joint ODNI, FBI, and CISA public statement on Iranian influence efforts, the FBI has learned additional details about Iran's efforts to sow discord and shape the outcome of the U.S. election. Iranian malicious cyber actors in late June and early July sent unsolicited emails to individuals then associated with President Biden's campaign that contained excerpts taken from stolen, non-public material from former President Trump's campaign as text in the emails. There is currently no information indicating these recipients replied. Furthermore, Iranian malicious cyber actors have continued their efforts since June to send stolen, non-public material associated with former President Trump's campaign to U.S. media organizations. This malicious cyber activity is the latest example of Iran's multi-pronged approach, as noted in the joint August statement, to stoke discord and undermine confidence in our electoral process. As the lead for the threat response, the FBI, I'm sure they'll do a great job, has been tracking this activity and has been in contact with the victims and will continue to investigate and gather information in order to pursue and disrupt the threat actors responsible. Foreign actors are increasing their election influence activities as we approach November. In particular, Russia, Iran, and China are trying by some measure to exacerbate divisions in U.S. society for their own benefit and see election periods as a moment of vulnerability. Efforts by these or other foreign actors to undermine our democratic institutions are a threat direct to the U.S. and will not be tolerated. The FBI insists to encourage campaigns and election infrastructure stakeholders to report concerning suspicious activities to, and there's the places you could report it. Now let's hold the Democrats to the standard. Are we sure where Progressive Victory PAC's money comes from? Are we sure? Is there any Iranian money going to Progressive Victory PAC? All of those people that jumped on the Russians paying tenant media, are we sure? Are there FISA warrants being issued against the Biden team? The Biden campaign? Do we have FISA warrants? Are we setting up honeypots? Because that's the standard, right? In 2016, that's the standard that the FBI had, right? Russia was supposedly trying to hack Democrat stuff and give information to the Trump campaign. So we had FISA warrants. We had to spy on them. We had this massive FBI investigation, which the target of was the Trump campaign. They didn't inform the Trump campaign that Russia might be influencing. Instead, they just started spying on them with FISA warrants and other investigative techniques. They sent a honeypot, a hot woman, to talk to George Papadopoulos by the name of Azra Turk, a pseudonym, and Stephen Halper, who is an FBI asset. They sent them to spy on George Papadopoulos. They got FISA warrants to go after Carter Page. So surely that's the treatment being given now, right? That's how we do things, correct? And those FISA warrants through the two-hop rule would be able to spy on the entirety of the the Biden campaign, which would include now the Harris campaign. Right? And I'm sure they'll be leaking to the press the details of that stuff, right? And I'm sure they'll be using those FISA warrants to bring people up on charges nothing to do with colluding with Iranians. Just like they did, right, with Roger Stone and with George Papadopoulos and with Paul Manafort. I'm sure that's what they'll be doing, correct? They'll go years back. That's how we do things, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Boy, if Iran's going against Trump, wouldn't that mean that if I was told with the tenant media stuff, Russia, disinformation, some of the things that they're pushing are things like inflation's too high. That was one of the things they said. So then I guess we could say people that say Trump's a threat to democracy, seeing as how Iran's going after Trump, I guess we could say that's Iranian misinformation, correct? That's pushing Iranian talking points, yes? That's the rules, right? Not my rules, not my standard. That's the standard that we've been told by the establishment in the Democratic Party. And you might say, now wait a minute. What's the connection to the Biden administration or to the Harris administration? Well, who reinstated the money to the Iran deal? Oh, that was the Biden-Harris administration. Started to send them billions of dollars, which promptly went to Hezbollah and was used for attacks in Israel, which then we were told by the Harris-Biden administration that we then have to fund Israel. So certainly the policies of the Harris-Biden administration far more beneficial to Iran than any of the Trump policies were to Russia, and we screamed Russia, Russia, Russia for 4 years. Trump was more antagonistic to Russia than any president since Reagan. Sent Javelin missiles to Ukraine, increased U.S. energy production, had sanctions on Russian energy production. I didn't agree with some of this shit. Thanks so much, Jabroni, for the sub. I appreciate it. Let's get that money rolling in. Your boy Rob could use the money. I appreciate it, man. Not only that, we know that at least one official in the Biden camp was actually accused of being a spy for Iran. which is worse than anyone that was in the Trump campaign with Russia. The Iranian envoy, Rob Malley. This report from today, from the Free Beacon. Significant confusion, lack of supervision, and delayed notification. IG report skewers State Department's handling of Robert Malley's suspension. This is from today. The State Department grossly mishandled its suspension of scandal-plagued Iran envoy Robert Malley, allowing him to continue accessing classified information and sensitive data after he was disciplined, according to the IG report. The department's assistant inspector general gathered congressional staffers Wednesday afternoon for a closed-door briefing on the agency's missteps after Malley had his security clearance pulled in 2023 for mishandling classified information. The briefing revealed that Malley was permitted to engage in classified activities even after his clearance was pulled, representing a breach of federal protocol, according to the attendees. Malley was also treated differently than other employees accused of a major security breach, with the State Department working to shield him from public embarrassment, according to the inspector general and accompanied briefing. Information about Malley's situation was withheld from senior State Department officials, including his own deputy, according to some attending the briefing. The Inspector General further determined that Malley was still performing his official duties after his security clearance was revoked, again in breach of State Department protocol. The briefing and accompanying report provided a rare window into Malley's suspension and the circumstance surrounding it. The Iran envoy's security clearance was originally revoked in late April 2023, but the State Department kept it hidden from public view for more than 2 months. That process deviated from department policy, the Inspector General determined. The department deviated from the way that suspensions are typically delivered by delaying notification to Mr. Malley until senior department officials were appraised of his suspension, according to a copy of the report. The delay allowed him the opportunity to participate in classified conference call after the suspension was approved, but before he was notified. The, quote, secure telephone call referenced in the report took place April 21st, after Malley's security clearance was revoked and included White House officials. In late May, a month after Malley had his clearance revoked, he was included in an email with then Undersecretary of Political Affairs Victoria Nuland. Isn't that funny how her name keeps coming up? Regarding talking points for the Secretary of State Blinken. Nuland reported being unaware of Malley's clearance suspension despite having to work with him on sensitive matters. Special Envoy Malley's advice was also regularly sought and provided on issues including media talking points and congressional testimony. The State Department even went so far as to restore Malley's access to sensitive but unclassified information systems, although such access is usually restricted for individuals in circumstances similar to Mr. Malley. A key justification for the restoration of access was concern that if Special Envoy Malley was restricted from accessing his department email account, he might use a personal email account as his primary means of conducting government business, which is explicitly prohibited. The lack of supervision of Special Envoy Malley led to significant confusion as to what Mr. Malley was authorized to do following suspension. The department failed to consistently notify employees who regularly interacted with Mr. Malley that he was no longer allowed access to classified information. These conditions likely led to Special Envoy Malley engaging on issues outside the limited scope of issues which he was authorized. The State Department leaders also failed to report allegations against Malley to the Inspector General, as they are required by law. Just 4 days after his clearance was pulled, senior State Department official lobbied to restore Malley's access to internal email systems, arguing, quote, that restoring his department email would permit him to communicate with his team, government colleagues, and counterparts in other U.S. governments. According to the Inspector General, this decision enabled Malley to access a substantial amount of material marked sensitive but unclassified. Malley also did not have a direct boss at the State Department, meaning that once his security clearance was revoked, no department official had day-to-day supervisor oversight and control regarding his work and participation in classified discussion. The Inspector General began investigating the State Department's handling of the Malley fiasco in July 2023 at the Senate's request. At least 20 officials from across the agency were interviewed as part of the probe, which also reviewed numerous internal communications about the Malley situation. In May of that year, Malley was supposed to attend a classified Senate briefing, but failed to show up, sparking questions of lawmakers. The State Department claimed at the time that Malley was on extended personal leave, misleading lawmakers about the true nature of his absence. News of the Malley investigation publicly emerged in June 2023, when it was revealed the State Department's Internal Diplomatic Security Office was examining his alleged mishandling of classified information. The investigation was eventually turned over to the FBI, and Malley was placed on indefinite leave from the State Department, with his status remaining unclear ever since. After vacating his government post, Malley accepted 2 teaching gigs at Yale and Princeton. The Inspector General report says that Malley is still technically the Biden-Harris administration's Iran envoy and will remain so, quote, until he resigns or is removed by the department if his security clearance is permanently revoked. The investigation into Malley quickly sparked a firestorm in Capitol Hill, with the House Foreign Affairs Committee accusing the State Department of stonewalling multiple requests for information. The committee, in fact, only learned of Malley's alleged indiscretion through media reports. The department's failure to inform Congress of this matter demonstrates the best a lack of candor, and it boasts a deliberate and potentially unlawful misinformation, said Representative McCall, the committee's chairman. Since that time, lawmakers have received almost no information from the Biden-Harris administration. The years-long scandal unfolded amid multiple attempts by the Biden-Harris administration to restart diplomacy with Iran, a task that Malley was originally tapped to lead to given to his Tehran's leadership. He hired several policymakers for the job, including Irene Tabatabai, who is now the senior Pentagon official with top security clearance. Tabatabai, however you say that, was identified as a member of the pro-Tehran advocacy network run by Iran's foreign ministry, adding a layer of intrigue around Malley's mishandling of the classified information. Some observers, including those on Capitol Hill, suspected that Malley may have leaked classified information to his network of pro-Tehran activists, with it potentially making its way back to the Iranian government. Oh boy! Isn't that great? So the point person for the Harris-Biden administration to deal with Iran was mishandling classified documents, appointing people that ended up being connected to nefarious groups working for Iran, was covered up in a litany of ways, including from the IG and from Congress. Now we find out that Iran's hacking Trump's team's material and then sending it to Democrats. FISA warrants anyone? That's the process, right? Seems like a bunch of shady connections to Iran. Right? Way more than any connections. What was it? What was the big connection from Trump's campaign when we had FISA warrants? What was that big connection? Allegedly, someone told George Papadopoulos, we have emails of Hillary Clinton. And Paul Manafort talked about pulling data to a Ukrainian named Konstantin Klemenuk. That's it. Any accusation that there was someone leaking classified material to the Russians? No, but that's what we have with the Biden administration. Was Trump sending the Russians billions of dollars? No, but that's what we have with the Harris-Biden administration, with the Iranian deal. Huh. Isn't that on? So I assume there's FISA documents right now, right? Of course, you had the Alpha Bank story as well, Edmund Bacon. Isn't it on? Yeah, Ricky Metzenbaum said, don't forget about the Chinese spy with like Swalwell. Dianne Feinstein's driver for 10 years was a Chinese spy. Thanks so much, Vita, for the super chat for $2. Wonder if his house will be raided like Trump did. Right. Are they going to call, say, Fox News to wait outside his house in the middle of the night while they drag him out in his underwear like they did with Roger Stone? They going to do that? That's the standard, right? That's what we were told. That's how things are done. Anytime someone now says something critical of Donald Trump, can we say that's Iranian disinformation? Those are Iranian talking points? That's how the game's played, right? This comes when Vladimir Putin personally said he would prefer Kamala Harris to win. Now, I know if I'm talking to some of my Democrat friends that stream, they'll say, well, that Putin didn't really mean that. Of course, he's going to say the opposite of what he wants to occur. Of course. Oh, no. I was reliably told if someone says I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, even on social media, that's the end-all be-all. So this Ryan Ruth character, the newest attempted assassin of Donald Trump, because as we talked about yesterday, because he had a post saying I voted for Trump at one point and Vivek and Haley shouldn't drop out of the race. That's it, says people like Destiny. He's a Republican. Really? We're not going to look into if that makes any sense. He donated to Act Blue 19 times. He has a Biden-Harris sticker on his truck. He voted in the Democratic primary election. He clearly hated Trump because he was trying to kill him. We're going to ignore all that because he had one post that said, hey, I voted for Trump in 2016 and I hope Vivek and Haley stay in the race. So if we're going to take his words at face value, why not Putin's? Putin says he's a Harris supporter. He wants Harris to win. We know Iran doesn't like Trump and they want the Democrats to win. They seem pretty bad. Aren't they involved right now with terrorist activity in Israel? Isn't that great? We fund Israel. And then we have a current administration that's funding Iran, that's funding terrorists to attack Israel. So then we have to fund Israel more so they can beat back the terrorists that we're indirectly funding. Isn't that great? Oh, and by the way, it turns out we have officials that are appointing Iranian officials to positions of prominence in the U.S. government. And then it's being covered up by the Harris-Biden administration. Meanwhile, Iran is hacking emails or what have some sort of material of the Trump campaign and sending it to the Democrats. FISA warrants anyone? What do you think the chances are of the people like IRI the other day on that panel that said, Rob, you're just a stooge of Russia? What do you think the chances are that he's saying, oh my God, I've been a stooge of Iran? Of course not. They don't care about the double standard. They'll just say, oh, well, we're saying what we really believe. And if Iran happens to parrot those same things, they're just trying to cause general division. They're not picking a side, just general division. That's what they'll say. And why wouldn't Iran cheer for Harris Biden? They're sending them billions of dollars. Trump shut that down. It doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with that policy. People could agree or disagree. What matters is, certainly Iran liked that. Certainly Iran preferred Biden to Trump. Certainly Iran would prefer Harris to Trump. Now, personally, my standard is, so what? It's worth talking about. It's worth saying, well, but does that mean that Harris administration's a stooge of Iran? No. Does that mean the people that are saying we hate Trump are stooges of Iran? No. But that's not, why does my standard matter? Their standard is, you're spreading Russian talking points when you talk favorably about Trump. Their standard is FISA warrants when there's shady connections to a campaign and a hostile foreign network. So why shouldn't they be held to the same standard that they've sought to others? Why not? But it's different. It's different when they do it. I whine too much. It's especially grating with the whiny voice. I do have a whiny voice, absolutely true. Why, yes, there's an easy way to solve that. You don't have to listen to me. There's many other videos you could be watching on YouTube or elsewhere. I would say that you could spend time with a significant other, but probably the person that's on a chat of a guy they're saying whining, that doesn't have a lot of viewers who themselves is whining, probably doesn't have a significant other or anyone that really cares about them to spend your time with. But thanks so much for participating and helping drive my numbers up. Really appreciate it. You whine too much. I do look good without a shirt. We'll say that's subjective at best. Any chance I could body slam Demon Mama, like in a debate or like in real life? Not until my back gets fixed here. What's my thoughts on Cinch and Adam? Ask me later. We got enough news to talk about, but if you ask me later, I'll tell you. I'm doing well, Randy. So Friday I go to an orthopedic. So I thought it was worth talking about this Iranian story. So remember, if you hear any of your left-wing streamers that you watch saying Russian talking points, just be like, you're spreading Iranian talking points. That's it. Now, let me take a second. I'm going to do something that I very rarely do. I hesitate to put people's things like GoFundMe's and other things because I can't vet information. I would feel terrible if I said, here's a person that was in a car wreck, here's their GoFundMe, you should consider supporting them, and then it turns out they weren't in a car wreck. And I misled people. But I will vouch to a degree that the person I'm about to talk to has been someone who's regularly followed the show for a long time. And so although this is not something I'll make a habit of doing, I will just this one time share a story about Conservative Carnage, who you see in the chat now. Conservative Carnage is going through a difficult time and has asked me to please share their story with the consideration of possibly getting some sort of donations to help them through financially this difficult time. So I have a PayPal link for you, and then we'll read some of this. Trump was not complying with the FBI. He wasn't even informed by the FBI that there was an investigation into him or his team when they started getting FISA warrants. So, help Ryan with money for food in his family. Ryan says, I lost my job last September. My manager lied about me. It was awful. Really hurting. Have sold a lot of my possessions that weren't thrown out. When I lost my home, now I'm living with my dad. He has congestive heart failure and he had to retire early a few years ago. Both were struggling pretty bad. I've been trying to find work, but it's hard when my only reference to my last 10 years lied about me. Any money here could be used for food, and I really appreciate any help you could spare. So if anyone has a couple dollars that they were going to throw my way today, if you consider using that link and throwing them Ryan's way, I would appreciate it. You don't have to apologize. It's okay. Again, it's not... I understand, like, it's so difficult. I know I'm extremely lucky. Even though I'm not a wealthy person and I live paycheck to paycheck, I'm very lucky in the situation that I'm in. And I'm not struggling like many other people, including people that will watch me, sometimes are struggling. So certainly, I don't mind using my platform to try to help people out. It's not something that I do quite often because a lot of times what happens is you have people reach out and you can't vet everyone. But I do know Conservative Carnage has been a follower of the channel for well over a year, and has been someone that's helped me out, sending me research links and things like that. So I'll put that link one more time. Please consider if you got a couple extra dollars. I think any little thing would sounds a lot like socialism, maybe. Alex says, why would Dems shift the focus from a favorable debate to an assassin attempt to kill their momentum? Well, there's many reasons that could be the case. One, they don't think that the momentum is that favorable to them. And even though there might be polling that's showing that they're ahead, maybe their internals are showing that it's not so clear. Second, who said that the Democrats specifically, like the Harris campaign specifically planned an assassination attempt? It's most likely that it's an unhinged person that was someone who didn't like Donald Trump. So I doubt that an unhinged person that's willing to take a shot at Trump because they think he's such an existential threat. In this case, my guess would be to Ukraine. So I don't think that they're thinking of it rationally like, oh, actually, Kamala did better at the debate, so I was about to shoot him. If Trump would have won the debate, I would have shot at him. But now that I think Kamala won, I'm going to hold back on it. I don't think that that's sort of how that works. Thanks, Conservative Carnage. I appreciate it. I hope you get some donations. I hope things work out for you, man. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad idea, Sunflower. A picture of the person, a picture of them and their family. Sometimes that does go a long way because it makes it more personalized and lets people know that it's not, some faceless person out there. But thanks, Rob Pearson. I appreciate it. But I do believe, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I vetted this. I can't say that. But I know Conservative Carnage has been with the community for a long time. And he's going through a difficult spot, so I'm willing to put that out there. I'm not saying he's some Nigerian prince you should send millions of dollars to or anything like that. So yeah, my thoughts are with Conservative Carnage. Alex, are you a bot? Didn't I just answer that exact question? Good deal. Maybe you're behind. All right, next topic. Since we're pivoting off Iran, let's talk about Hamas pagers. How about that? That's a big story, right? I haven't thought about this that much, to be honest, because I basically don't give a shit, if I'm honest with you. My standard's been, I could say, I think sometimes Israel goes too far, etc. I just don't want the U.S. being involved. That's it. Was it Hezbollah? Whatever. Hezbollah. Okay. Shows you how much I've followed the story. Everyone's correcting me. See, my audience is smarter than me. Again, Hezbollah financed by Iran. Thank you, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, for sending them that money. Look, my general stance on this, Ben, I don't like how much we fund all of these countries and all these conflicts. I think that Israel has far too much influence on U.S. foreign policy for a long time. I think that it's something that we need to stop doing. I think it's ridiculous that we fund Israel and then we do things like put a flotilla that costs, remember that? Remember the flotilla that Biden put out there that cost like $30 million or something that never delivered anything and was just an excuse to further entrench us in this conflict? And then we dismantled the flotilla. Just another waste of money. Another Harris-Biden debacle. What's another tens of millions of dollars here? We're already pissing money away by the billions, right? Why are we sending money to both sides of the conflict? But in general, I don't mind people taking a side. My personal thing is I think Hamas is wretched. I liken it to sort of a ruthless gang and then corrupt police officers going after them. So the ruthless gang might butcher you in front of your children and not give a shit, and they might even be so dumb that they'll film themselves on GoPros doing it. The corrupt police aren't going to be so dumb, but that doesn't mean that they can't be corrupt and do things behind the scenes that are atrocious as well. I think both sides have acted terribly. I don't care to research it that much because I don't think that we should be involved. I've limited time. It's a conflict that goes back 1,000 years. I just don't care. Personally, I don't mind people that want to criticize Israel and say that they're going too far. That's reasonable. I think many of the people that are doing that, though, particularly those that come from the left, are some of the worst people. They're the same sort of socialist communists that would want to throw your ass in prison if you disagree with them. But I don't mind the criticisms. I don't mind it. I've personally said that I think it's fine to criticize one side or the other. I think that sometimes Israel does go too far in the limited investigations I've done into it. I think that they could be more targeted. But I also know this. If it was my family that was kidnapped or killed, I wouldn't give a shit. I don't care if you'd say, Rob, you're going too far. You're going scorched earth. Shut up. It's my wife that's hostage. Shut your mouth. That doesn't mean that you're wrong. But when it personally affects you, the calculation's different. Again, someone outside it could say, yeah, but you're going too far. It could be true. But your passions and your emotions being involved with your loved ones being the ones that were involved. Same goes the other way as well. If you're someone from Palestine who, the IDF killed your sister, you're going to have an irrational hatred for them. And yes, it'll never end until cooler heads prevail, but I get it. So that's in general where I've been. What do I think about them using pagers specifically? Thanks, Conservative Carnage. I wish you the best, man. Yeah, of course innocents will always die. So I'll ask this seriously. What's Israel's recourse? If the stories are true, unless you think that October 7th was a total psyop and it didn't happen and Hamas didn't do anything, what's their recourse? If there was an attack on October 7th, they supposed to just say, oh, never mind? I heard some of the peace deals were afterwards, well, they took the hostages and stuff. Well, if you promise not to retaliate and not to come into Gaza, then we'll release the hostages. So then the lesson learned is we could attack you with impunity and then you can't do anything back. And then 3 months from now, if they do it again, you just say, sorry, you can't do anything back. That's the rules of engagement. What are they supposed to do? Any sort of dropping of any munition, like a bomb of any type, there's a large potential that someone innocent gets caught in the crossfire. Even if you're sending in troops on the ground, there's a very good chance that innocents will be harmed. What is the policy for how you could retaliate against an aggressor that doesn't result in the deaths of innocents? I'm unaware of it. And that's going back through the history of war, as far as I'm aware, from the beginning of time. It's inevitable. Now, you could do things that specifically target civilians in a more egregious way, and I know that's a lot of the accusation of Israel. Maybe that's true. But then the question I come up with is, okay, then what would the alternative be? Unless you're saying they should totally not fight, which, again, as someone who's peace-loving, I wish that there would be a nonviolent resolution. I do wish that would be the case. But Israel's coming at this from a position of strength. They're stronger than Hamas. It's different with Ukraine-Russia, where Russia is the stronger country. So if you're in the weaker position, you have weaker bargaining power. And so if it's going to be a negotiation, you have to keep that in mind. Israel's not going to negotiate and get the losing hand despite having a stronger, more robust economy, a stronger, more robust military. They're not going to do that. They're going to get their pound of flesh. They're going to say, you attacked us, we're going to make you feel some pain. And then when we go to the negotiating table, we're in a more favorable position. The question of, is that how it ought to be, is fine to have, but that's the real world. That's how it is. So what specific, once you say like, okay, well, they're not going to just say, never mind, we won't attack anyone, let's have a peaceful resolution. They're going to do something. So what should that something be that would avoid the loss of life of any innocents? And, I mean, the blowing up of pagers and walkie-talkies that supposedly are almost exclusively been given to Hezbollah? Yeah, I mean, it is true some of the criticisms you're hearing. Well, what if someone was driving a car and that blew up and it killed them or maimed them and they wrecked their car into a woman pushing a baby buggy? That's true. That could happen. But is there any sort of physical violence that you could assert on your enemy that wouldn't have that potential? Can we at least agree with this, that even if you think this was over the line, the killing of with people with pagers or the maiming of them, that it probably was less likely to kill or maim as many innocents as like dropping a bomb? Is that fair? Would people agree with that? That if you had to choose between detonating specific devices that allegedly only people in Hezbollah were given, even though there is some casualties from innocent people that could result from that, on average, that would lead to less innocent casualties than dropping a bomb. Because the bomb's pretty indiscriminate. Unless you're targeting it specifically, in military installations that you're well aware that there's no civilians at. So, I don't know. It seems to me like this was at least an attempt at a more targeted attack, including with people in positions of leadership with an organization like Hezbollah. And my preference would be something like that than indiscriminately bombing Gaza. Because you know for a fact when you're bombing Gaza, there's innocent people that are getting caught up in that. So without looking, it seems better than the alternative of dropping bombs, which they have been doing. Now, there's a separate question of, what does that make you think, in general, that there is technology out there for your devices that are sort of electronic, that they could be turned against you so quickly? To which I say, of course, we all knew that deep down, but it is kind of crazy to see it play out in front of you. It's sort of sobering. You're like, yeah. You don't think they could do that with electric vehicles if they wanted? You don't think they could do that with your cell phone if they wanted? Now, maybe, my guess is that these were devices created with the intent to explode. It wasn't just like that they could send some text message and make your cell phone explode like that just through the circuitry in it. But nonetheless, the theory still remains true. And maybe that's true. Maybe just the lithium battery would be able to explode like that. That could be true. But the far more likely scenario is that they could use that for surveillance of you, which is undoubtedly true. Everyone's phone, this phone I have, right here, everything I say or do on that phone, no doubt, is collected by institutions that I don't want collecting, including our government, including hostile foreign governments, including companies. And they're using that data. They're using it to sell to people for targeted advertising. They're using it to spy on people. This computer that I'm on right now, same thing. Your smart TV, same thing. It's everywhere. So it is sobering to realize, wow, if they could literally plant bombs and stuff like this, it just is a extreme scenario that illustrates just how reliant on technology we are. And what that could mean if some nefarious group that had power wanted to use that. Well, Oliver Twisted. So I'll tell you a story. I had when I debated in college, oftentimes the little school I went to, Clarion University, oftentimes there were, I don't know that you would call it foreign exchange students, but there was some sort of program to entice people from different countries to come to a small state school like Clarion. And in my time on the debate community, I had two such people. Both happened to be Muslim. One was named Kamala, and he was from Algeria, and the other was named Muhammad, and he was from Egypt, I believe. Those were the only two Muslims that I've gotten to know deep down. And it couldn't have been a more disparate interaction. Kamala was genuinely one of the nicest, most understanding people I've ever met. I would be shocked if that dude has ever met anyone in his life that didn't instantly be like, I like that dude. He didn't just say the right things. He was genuinely a great person. I got stuck in an airport with him one day for like 6 hours, and we started talking about Algeria, and he's like, what comes to mind when you think of Algeria? And I'm like, deserts, small towns, like villages, not a lot of technology. And it was beautiful. He showed me where he lived. Unbeknownst to me, I think it was like Alexander the Great came through Algeria, and so there's a lot of like sort of Greek statues and Greek artwork that was there that they sort of worked on the land somewhat. And it's very green where he lived. It wasn't like a desert. There's a lot of like vegetation. And it was so cool. He was such a great guy. He was always taking pictures. He's fascinated by everything. And we're here in this little rural Pennsylvania town. He's fascinated by the agriculture, fascinated by the, forests and stuff that are around here. Just a great guy, really great guy. Muhammad scared the shit out of me. Like, for real, scared the shit out of me. Very extreme. Like, I'm not even going to get into a lot of details, but so I was out of debate eligibility for policy debate, what I did, and so I became a coach. I was coaching, and so I was a coach of Muhammad. But there were other styles of debate that you could participate in, which, because I was still a student at Clarion University, I could participate in. So there was this one style of debate that was like a unique tournament. There wasn't other tournaments like that, and it had a cash prize. It was like $1,000 or something to the winning team. It was more modeled after like parliamentary style debates. So instead of like one team on each side, you'd have like 3 teams on each side, 3 teams of 2. And it was sort of a big round table discussion, and then they would judge who won. And so Muhammad really wanted to do this, and he didn't have a partner, so I agreed to be his partner. And the topic, I don't remember the specific wording, but it had to do with Israel-Palestine. And Muhammad's argument was basically wipe out Israel. That's the argument he wanted to make. He wanted to argue Hamas is good, wipe out Israel. Now, to me, debate's a game. It doesn't matter what I really believe. If you want to play the game and you want to argue a position that you don't agree with, that's fine by me. So, because I was there as Muhammad's partner, it wasn't my show to run. I was there as the partner of Muhammad. It was his show. I was basically his sidekick. Now, truth be told, I was the much stronger debater, but I wanted to give him creative control over what our arguments would be. I, by the way, convinced him to tone that down, right? But that's the spirit of what we were arguing. Hamas was misunderstood. And hey, thanks. People were already donating to conservative carnage. Good. And so I started talking to him, and I was like, well, okay, here's some of the arguments we'll hear as opposed to that. They'll say, even if you're right that the IDF and Israel are terrible and they're sort of committing atrocities, when you attack Israel, you will kill innocent people. And he says, what innocent people? And I was like, like people that aren't soldiers. He's like, there are no innocents. And I was like, what about children? And his answer to me, which reminded me of the comment I saw from Oliver Twist there, his answer was, military service is compulsory in Israel. There are no innocents. Every child we kill is a future soldier. That was his argument. And I'm just like, and that to me was like, I obviously had a vague idea of sort of passions that would flare up over Israel-Palestine and the people that were like involved. But that was the most sobering I'd heard it from someone who was like deeply invested in this. And I was just like taken aback. I was like, oh, well, I don't think that's a good argument to make. I I was like, that's probably not going to be a winning argument in this format, that we should intentionally kill children because they're just future soldiers. We might want to reframe that if the intent's to win the argument. But that's the intensity of sort of how he felt as someone who was cheering for Hamas. And so I understand that there are people in Israel that would say the same thing. Hey, so what? Some innocent people got killed in Gaza. They're all going to be indoctrinated by Hamas anyway, so they're just future enemies, even the children. And it's like, I don't have the answers, man. I don't have the answers on how to resolve a conflict like that has that level of hatred. I'll take the bold stance of killing children is bad on any side of a conflict. But I'm not there. It's not my religious war. Thanks, It's Me Chuckles. I appreciate the sub. So, I get it. If I talk, and when I was doing those spaces with John Burke, I mean, there was a dude that came in and defended October 7th. And defended Hamas. And I tried to talk to him like a rational person, not just like, you're a monster. I tried to get his point of view. Theoretically, Thomas O'Brien, all children would be potential future soldiers. So, that's where I stand on this. It's such a crazy situation, like conflicts like this in the Middle East. We should just not be involved. So I'm not outraged that Israel did this any more than I would be outraged when they were bombing. In fact, I think it's probably better than indiscriminate bombing, because at least it seems to be specifically targeted at people that they think are enemies. Whereas a bomb, even if it's targeted at enemies, is going to have significant collateral damage. So I'm not freaking out over it or anything like that. But it's certainly politically here in the United States, it's a difficult scenario to navigate, particularly for... No, we were doing spaces around October 7th last year. Yeah. It's difficult to navigate, particularly for the Democrats, because so much of their base just straight up hates Israel. And so they have to walk this fine line. It does seem to me interesting, and again, this is alleged reporting, so I don't know if this is true, but it does seem to suggest, from what I've read, the reporting suggests that the Harris-Biden administration was not informed of this plan. Which would make sense if it was targeting Hezbollah, seeing as how Iran is actively working to help Harris win and spying on Trump's team. And apparently there was the Iranian envoy was someone who was mishandling classified information and allegedly giving it to Iranians. So why would, if you're Israel and you know that, wouldn't you be like, maybe we'll keep this under our hat? That's it. Anyone disagree with me? Like, it's not a hot take necessarily. Now that the title's sort of clickbaity. Secular Talk offered a challenge for a conservative. I accepted the challenge. He has not got back to me. So there probably won't be a debate. I tricked you in with a clickbaity. The title is true, but I tricked you in. So that's basically all I have to say on the pagers blowing up story. What else do we got? Disingenuous. I am disingenuous. You got it, baseball. Why clickbait? I don't know. I'm a bad person. What else are we going to talk about today? We got the Iran situation, the assassination attempt, the pagers blowing up. What else were we going to talk about? Teamsters. Talk about the Teamsters? Rob is short for grifter. True. The Teamsters. For those that don't know, the Teamsters is the biggest union in the United States. I believe the biggest union. And for the first time in a long time, they are not endorsing a Democratic candidate for president. They almost always endorse the candidate that's running for the Democrats, and they've chosen not to. And they released their internal polling showing that 60% of their members that were polled supported Donald Trump over Kamala Harris. Now, this is particularly interesting because before Biden dropped out, internal polling released from the Teamsters union suggested that Biden was preferred over Trump, which would seem to suggest, unless there's something hinky going on with the way they're doing this poll, it seems to suggest that a lot of these Teamsters preferred the default positions of Biden over Kamala Harris. OK says it's ironic that the head of the Teamsters aren't abiding by the will of their union. Isn't it, though? Garrett, thanks so much for the super chat, $5. What topics would you debate secular talk on? The specific topic that they asked about was they were looking for conservatives to debate them on whether or not the rhetoric used by Democrats incited the assassination attempt against Trump. I'd be happy to debate that topic. Of course, I can't prove definitively that that's the case, but what I would prove is based on the standards of people in the Democratic Party who want to blame Trump for rhetoric when some sort of violent action occurs against a left-wing person, those same standards would show that it's more than sufficient to use that same standard against Democrats and their insightful rhetoric against Donald Trump. That would be my argument. Why didn't the Teamsters Union leadership allow this? Well, no doubt because they support Democrats. No, Biden won't jump back in the race. It would be a disaster for them. It really would. More likely, if they wanted to replace Harris, they would replace with someone that wasn't Biden. There's just no chance Biden gets back into it. Yeah, thanks. Give some likes. Yeah, send some money. Give some likes. You guys are the best. Now, to me, what this represents is a switch that's going on in the parties. Rob, do not say you tricked us with clickbait and then post to GoFundMe. There's a Teamster. There we go. I think that increasingly, even before the Donald Trump, I think that increasingly what you saw where the Democrats' support was coming from the very wealthy and the very poor. And the sort of middle and working class tended to be going more Republican. And I think that's exacerbated with the advent of MAGA. I think that the switch that we're seeing is more of a populist mindset coming through the Republican Party while Donald Trump's there. In other words, that sort of populism represents America first, wanting to work out for American workers, protect from outside people that would come in to take your jobs, protect from countries that would try to undercut U.S. jobs. Values that average everyday American working class people would believe, such as not having sexual education or sexual books in schools, not wanting women's sports to be erased or women's spaces to be erased by transgender folks, wanting to advocate for things like free speech. And a lot of these values also are shared by old school left-wingers, liberals like RFK. There's a reason that RFK has more of a home in the Republican under Donald Trump party than he does the Democrat party. The Democrat party represents more of an elitism. The ultra-wealthy, the intel agencies, the mainstream media, the neocons, the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Romneys. It's no surprise that Cheney came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Alberto Gonzalez, from the torture memos that the Democrats used to hate, came out, endorsed Kamala Harris. Now, does that mean that most unions support Trump? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying most working class people do. Or at least a bigger portion of the working class people that vote probably support Donald Trump. Union leadership or people that are specifically in unions might be more inclined to do what they've always done, traditionally vote Democrat. I could tell you that in 2016, I knew several people in the area I live in, overwhelmingly predominant Trump supporters. The people you'll find that aren't Trump supporters, a lot of them are people that work at the university. So professors, people that are students at the university, things like that. But the people that weren't Trump supporters, that were Democrat supporters in this area, the vast majority of them, again, the majority of those were people affiliated with the university in some way. But the vast majority of the ones that weren't, that supported Hillary Clinton, for example, or supported Biden over Trump, were union people. And they grew up union people, and unions vote Democrat. And so that's just the way it is. And I could tell you, particularly in this election, not many. I still know those that are like union, voting Democrat, screw Trump. But I've seen it start to switch. I've seen some union people that 2016 were like, no way voting for Trump. 2020, no way voting for Trump. It doesn't matter if you think Trump's an elitist. It is true, Trump's a billionaire and Harris isn't. But ironically, much of the working class, even though they're not in the same economic bracket as Trump, they support Trump's policies more. They think Trump cares more about the working class citizens of this country than Kamala Harris. It's insufficient to say, but Trump's got a bunch of money. That's why overwhelmingly, when the numbers have backed this up, the ultra-rich tend to vote Democrat. That's why you see Kamala Harris out there like, oh, so many CEOs are backing us, and Goldman Sachs back us. So I'm seeing some of those people, and it makes sense. Like, and I'm not saying all this stuff, you might disagree with some of this stuff. Tariffs. If you're in a union, and for example, you work in the automobile industry, tariffs are a good sign for you. Yeah, keep other countries' cars out here. It might increase cost. That's one of the arguments that's happening. It'll increase cost for these products. But if you're a union member in this country, the idea is inevitably that will advantage you. It'll cause more people to want to build more stuff in this country. Keeping out labor competition in the form of immigration. That benefits union members in this country. Now, I haven't looked into it, but I've heard people say the Harris-Biden administration bailed out the Teamsters union to the tune of X millions of dollars. Maybe true. I don't know. I haven't deeply looked into it. But it's clear that that's not affecting the Teamsters' actual on-the-ground people if they're supporting Trump over Harris. And again, I want to be clear. This doesn't mean that you can't say, but the teachers' unions have came out and supported Harris. And this union came out and supported Harris. And this union came out and supported Harris. It's probably true. In general, I still think most unions who traditionally have been with the Democratic Party are going to publicly support the Democrats. But it's starting to signal a shift that you're seeing. That's what I see. Dick Cheney is a Harris supporter. He's being applauded by the Democrats, the same people that told you not 8 years ago that he was a war criminal that should be tried in The Hague, are celebrating his endorsement of Kamala Harris. The same people that told you that George Bush was the worst person ever, Bush lied, people died, are now talking about people from his administration that are supporting Democrats like they're great people. If I would have told you that, if in 2008 I told you, listen, within 16 years, Cheney's going to be held up as this awesome example of people on the left pointing to him saying, see, he knows what he's talking about. You would have laughed at me. Thanks so much, Toke. $5 for Super Chat says Teamsters can't support Harris. They got UPS to pay for her health care 100%. Harris wants to take that away. We all love our health care. Well, it may be true. I haven't looked into it, but I feel you, Toke. I know she suggested getting rid of private health care. Wins the debate with Kyle. He hasn't accepted it yet. I've accepted his challenge, but he hasn't accepted. I'm not the biggest fan of broad tariffs either, but I can understand why unions would be. Yeah, he could accept right now and I would do it. Until I go to bed. Once I stop streaming, I'm done streaming. But yeah, sure. I don't need any prep time. Anytime I'm available that he would like to do it. Now, I have no way to get in contact with him any more than publicly accepting his offer. And his offer was to any conservative. He wants someone like Charlie Kirk. He ain't going to get Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro. And I'm every bit as qualified as them to argue this topic with him. But we'll see. Don't improperly spam anyone. I implore. But if you want to at him, by all means. Thanks, Mike Page. I am pretty qualified. Yeah, be polite. Catch more flies with honey, right? So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And of course, the usual characters, the hutches, will look at all these unions. When I said, look, it signifies the shift in parties. Look at all these unions. Of course, most union people are still going to support the Democrats, but the shift is being signaled. And certainly, in general, the working class tends to be predominantly, polling showed this for years, the middle and working class is more likely to vote Republican. The people that are on the lower end of the economic scale and the very higher end tend to vote Democrat. So it would make sense, because union workers fall in that middle, then inevitably they would transition that way. And this is devastating for Kamala Harris. I still think Kamala Harris wins for various reasons. But this has to be a raising some eyebrows in the DNC, like, I would happily debate Cenk on Piers Morgan. You know, one thing about Piers, and you can't blame him this, it's still an entertainment show. So even though he'll be outraged at like comments that a streamer like Destiny will make, he'll bring Destiny back because it gets clicks. And what do I get? I'm just some regular guy. I don't got the eyeballs on me that would make me attractive to Piers Morgan as far as a guest. But I think I would do phenomenally in that platform. But yeah, Content Farm. I'm not great for Content Farm. Most of the time. I'm just too good. All right, what else were we talking about tonight? What am I missing? So we had the Teamsters story. Am I missing anything? Harris is the first Democratic candidate since 1988 to fail to secure the Teamsters endorsement. Fed's cutting rates. There's a story. Fed's cut rates. Now, I'm no economist. And I did have to argue to Pisco that the Fed's cutting rate doesn't automatically mean that they're printing more money. But when the Feds cut the rate, it tends to lead to more money printing because it makes borrowing money easier. So when more people are borrowing money because the rates are low, that usually tends to mean that the Federal Reserve ends up doing something called quantitative easing or finding other ways to print money. So it was a half a percentage, 50 BPS, whatever the hell that means. I know what it means, but... And what this does is, it signifies, in theory, this is my limited understanding of what goes on. When you're worried about something like a recession, you want to spur economic activity. So you cut rates in an attempt to spur money getting flowing and economic activity to start going. When you're concerned about inflation, too much money being out there, you raise rates in a hope to contract the amount of money that's going out there. And so when inflation is still remarkably high, if you look at the Harris-Biden administration over the course of their administration, right, what they'll want to talk about, and this goes back to what I talked about years ago. 3 years ago, I was talking about this. The way we measure inflation is sort of year over year. So inflation from March 2022 to March 2023 is 7%, hypothetically, we say. And so that's what we say, inflation 7%. But what that loses is, if there's an increased amount of inflation early, later, if inflation from that high point only goes up 1%, you say, oh, we've beaten inflation. Inflation's gone down. So here's the example I give. Let's say, and these are all, I'm just using simple numbers for math, but hopefully you'll understand the principle. Let's say when Harris Biden come into office, milk costs $2 a gallon. And when Harris Biden leave office, milk will cost $8 a gallon. Right? So skip those 4 years. All you know is eventually when this term ends, milk went from $2 to $8. Now, if the way that happened was the first year it went up to 4, then to 6, then to 8, you would say, oh, 100% inflation year over year. That's terrible. Inflation continuing to remain at insane levels. But if instead, year 1, it went up to $8 an hour. So in the first year, we go from $2 to 8. You'd say, what's that, a 300% inflation? Oh my goodness. But then year 2, it stayed $8. And year 3 and 4, it stayed $8. You know what they would say? We've beaten inflation. Inflation is 0%. It's 0%. Did I get it after bullying ChatGPT? Not this time. I can't wait though. Da beans. Another Destiny supporter. As soon as I shut this off, this is how I get my kicks, man. Some people like look at scantily clothed women. That's how they get excited. You know what I do? I like to go on and bully AI. That's what I do. Oh, it's so great. What's up, Kronik? And I said, this is what's happening with the Biden. We're seeing these. First, we have to accept the numbers are accurate, which we've changed the way we measure inflation from the 70s, etc. Then we have to accept the numbers we're being given, even under these new calculations, are correct. I heavily suspect they're not, given that we can see how they manipulate the job data and always go back and resend it. But even then, if we just accept the numbers we're given at face value, there were times when inflation was reaching like double digits almost, year over year, like 9%, close to 10%. And I said, what'll happen eventually is these numbers are unsustainable to keep having inflation year over year 10%. So inevitably it'll fall down to like 5, 6, 4, 3%. And they'll say, it's a victory. We've brought down inflation. But that's small comfort to the person buying groceries. Small comfort. Now, it's not just residual from the Trump administration, although it is true that there was massive money printing and a shutdown of our economy during the Trump administration. Those policies were advocated even more by the Democrats, such as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. They signed off on it too, and then they exacerbated the situation when they came into office. But they beat inflation. And I've been saying for years, I didn't even understand the political strategy. I knew the political strategy, but I thought there was a much better way to go about it. You could have taken based pods approach, which could have been saying, we admit inflation's bad. People are struggling. It's Trump's fault. That would have been strategically better than what they did, which was like, this economy's great. It's great. The economy's going great. That was the signaling they were giving. And so what I said was, imagine that you're a Democrat and you voted for Biden and Harris and you're sitting at home and you're like, wow, I'm really struggling. I wonder what they're going to do to help me. And their response is, but everything's great. One of the greatest economies in the world. It's doing great. And the problem is, like Rothbard gets it. When people say they're bringing inflation down, that doesn't mean prices decrease. That means the rate of the raising of prices is slowing down. It's the same with deficits. Let me get this right. So when they say, I reduced the deficit, that doesn't mean that we were in debt $100 trillion and now after them, we're only in debt $95 trillion. So we reduced the debt by $5 trillion. No, what that means is we spent $1 trillion deficit one year, and then the next year we spent $900 billion in deficit on top of that. And we say we reduced the deficit. One way you could reduce the deficit is to say, let's spend $100 trillion my first year in office, and the next year we'll only spend $1 trillion. And we'll say, my goodness, we brought the deficit down 99%. That's historic. No one's ever done that. And it would be a true statement. Yeah, you can't point to another president that lowered the deficit 99%. True. Well, actually, that might not be true because we used to have surpluses, so I'm not sure how the percentages work. But if you take any sort of deficit and then turn it into a positive, a surplus, I think arguably that would maybe be more than 100%. I don't know. But you get the point. And so the problem is, you could bullshit about a lot of stuff. You could gaslight and bullshit people when it comes to foreign policy. And you could gaslight people and bullshit them when it comes to things like abortion policy. Even to some degree, things like immigration. The problem is you can't bullshit people when they see it themselves. Once the story directly affects an individual, it's hard to gaslight them. So, for example, illegal immigration, if you don't see illegal immigrants in your town, it's sort of out there in the ether. It's not directly affecting you, so you're like open to hearing both sides of the argument, and you don't know. It could be bullshit, the people that are saying it's a severe problem. But everybody's buying groceries, or almost everyone. What's up, Bill Hicks? One of my favorite comedians. Yeah, Crucible Crew, sure. Love the Crucible. And so it doesn't matter how well you're like, oh yeah, the economy's great. It's doing great. The economy's doing great. You can keep saying it. But I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, unless you're extremely wealthy and you just have so much money you don't give a shit about the cost of gas going up. Like, Stephen Colbert, I don't care if gas goes up to $50 a gallon. No shit, you're rich. Everyone I know, Republican or Democrat, gives a shit about that. They care because they're not insanely rich. I don't know anyone, really, that's rich. Thanks, Hezbollah. So they keep saying, yeah, the economy's great. Just like they said, the border's secure. There's no crisis. Then what happened? Well, all of a sudden, it turns out there's a lot of communities, including communities that are traditionally strong Democratic strongholds, that are seeing the negative ramifications of illegal immigrants in their community. So I see town hall meetings in places like Chicago, where you have people don't look like the traditional white racists that hate brown people, do they? That we're told that it's all racism. All of a sudden you see people from traditional black communities who are like, what the fuck? We don't like this. They're reshaping our towns. Are they racist too? Is that the problem? Once it's directly affecting people, all of a sudden it's different. And the problem with the economics is it basically directly affects everyone. It is undoubtable that the economic picture over the extent of the Trump administration was better than the economic picture over the Harris and Biden administration. You could argue, but that's Trump's fault. You could argue that. But the problem is, Harris and Biden screwed the pooch on that by trying to gaslight people for 3 years. The economy's doing great. Just like they did with the border. 2021, border secure. 2022, border secure. 2023, border secure. 2024, there's a huge problem at the border and it's Trump's fault. So now we have rates being lowered. And what's one of the things that Jerome Powell from the Fed says today? Well, here, I'll play it for you. Why would they have to lower rates if there's a rosy economic picture? Why would they have to do it? 2 months before an election. Less than 2 months. Why would they have to do that? Let's hear one of the things that Jerome Powell said.
There's been quite an influx across the borders, and that has actually been one of the things that's allowed unemployment rate to rise.
What? No. The unemployment rate's rising? And some of it has to do with our border policy? No. You mean when people were correctly pointing out that most of these jobs, in fact, native-born Americans are losing jobs since Biden's been in office? And almost all the jobs that have been created are going to people that are foreign-born? No. Really? I was told that's racism. That's what I was told. I was told everything's peachy. The economy's great. That's why we're lowering rates. Now, the predictable consequence of lowering rates will be more money created, inevitably, which will lead to more inflation. Inflation disproportionately impacts the poor and working class. Why? Because the things that will be inflated are things like household goods, food, gas, cars, homes. So let's just take food to give you sort of an idea. Why does food cost on average rising 30% harm the poor and working class more than the wealthy? Well, let's draw you a picture to explain this. Let's say that you're a wealthy person. So here's your little pie chart. So you make, we'll say, $5 million a year. Got it? Can you see this? There you go. Oh, this is brutal with the light. There we go. $5 million a year. Now, let's say you spend $20,000 on eating a year. Out of this pie of $5 million, that's a very small slice. So if that doubles, that's still a very small slice of that pie. Now, let's say you make $50,000 a year and you spend less on food. You only spend $10,000. But $10,000 out of $50,000 is 1/5 of that pie. So if that doubles, now it's 2/5 of the pie. So even though the wealthy person is buying fancier food than you, they're buying caviar and lobsters and shit like that. So they're technically spending more because it is a less percentage of their overall expenses. Inflation doesn't hurt them as much because it's sort of a fixed cost. You don't eat infinite amount of food. You don't use infinite amount of fuel. You don't use infinite amounts of electricity. Even if you have infinite money, you have Elon Musk levels of money, you're only going to eat so much. So it's not like, oh, I always spend 10% of what I have on money or on food. If I'm making $50,000 a year, 10% will go to food. If I'm making $5 million a year, 10% goes to food. That's the percentage of that will continue to drop as you get more and more money. So if those prices increase, it affects you less in your overall picture. DeBeans says he's never came across someone dumber than Gibbs. DeBeans, would you like to call in? Surely I'm so stupid, I'm dumber than Gibbs. You could call in and easily eviscerate me. Should be quite easy. I'm so stupid. No problem, right? Right? It'll be easy to do so. Everyone would enjoy it. Hell, you could clip it later and show everyone what a moron I am. People say Rob's this good debater, but he's really stupid. So it'll be easy for you. It'll be a great little feather in your cap, right? Isn't that correct? It'll be simple. I won't hold my breath. Another big-time talker that won't call in. So, if we end up, ask yourself this, are you happy with the policy that predictably will lead to higher inflation right now? Do you feel like inflation's been solved? Is that what you feel like? When they tell you, oh, inflation's like 2 to 3%, it's good. It's at a good level now. You happy with that? You happy with a policy in lowering rates that will lead to more money and lead to more inflation? You happy? You okay with that? You saying to yourself, yeah, you know what? Actually, I could use to pay more at the grocery store when I go. You okay with that? They're trying to avoid a stock market crash, metrics that would, a contraction of GDP, a recession. But what happens is inflation always is a tax that comes later. It might stave off things in the short term, but it's ultimately the poor and working class that'll pay the most for it on the back end. Good for Biden Harris now to stave off immediate outcomes that would be negative. Bad for you. Why would they do it? Why would they do it if the economy's humming along? It's almost like they know that the data is pointing to a significant likelihood of an official recession if we're not already in one. As many metrics have showed, people are living off debt more, people are having more part-time jobs. I will ask people, even if they're joking, to please refrain from comments like Celtic Heathen had said there, just because it could get you to run afoul of TOS. So please, I'll ask you generously. If you don't mind. So there we go. We were told, where's the beans at? I thought I was dumb. He was going to call in and give me the business, right? Let's make sure no one's in my chat. Maybe I'm missing him. Huh, not there. Strange. I'm so dumb. Huh. What else do people want to talk about? Remember when they tried to assassinate Trump again the other day? On this note, remember, they negatively revised jobs, 818,000 jobs downward. Maybe that means the economy wasn't as rosy as we were told, which is why we need to cut rates. Here's an average Democrat C-SPAN caller. Have you heard this? I've not talked about Charleroi. In fact, I'm considering, Mr. Scott, I don't live too far away from Charleroi. Maybe making a trip there myself before the election and trying to talk to people. But Charleroi is a outskirts of Pittsburgh, small community, and they're having similar problems to Springfield, Ohio, where there was a bunch of people, I don't know if it's specifically Haiti, that were flown in. Let's hear a Democrat on C-SPAN. Ready?
Slidell, Louisiana. Willie, Democrat, good morning.
Good morning. I just want to say I'm a very patriotic American. I did 20 years in the military, 2 tours in Vietnam, wounded in 1966, went back in 68. And I look at myself and think about, we were supposed, as a military man, we're supposed to close, kill, capture, destroy the enemy by all means available. And to see we let this man Trump destroy America, and I look at it and say, well, these two people had to step up and take that shot. I'm 83, nothing to lose.
I'm sorry, Willie, you're not advocating violence, are you?
Not violence. I'm talking about defending my country.
All right. Dan, in Louisville, Kentucky.
Is that a guy from Destiny's Reddit? But that's an outlier, right? That's just an outlier. Remember when I said yesterday, I suspect that 1 out of every 4 Democrats would like Trump to be shot? Remember when I said that? So it's just a gut feeling. Here we have this from a poll from Rasmussen today. 28% of Democrats say America would be better off if Donald Trump had been assassinated. So I guess it was a little higher than the 1 out of 4 I said. Another 24% aren't sure. Fewer than half, 48% of Democrats could bring themselves to say that America would not be better off if the opposing candidate had been assassinated. Additionally, 51% of Democrats oppose increasing former Trump president's security detail. Now, any one poll could be erroneous. That's true. But at least that's a data point that backed out what my gut feeling was. I was almost exactly correct. 1/4 of Democrats. Surprisingly, another 1/4, not surprisingly, I guess, 1/4 are just flat out like, yeah, assassinating Trump would have been better. Then another 1/4 are like, well, I don't know, maybe. Less than half were definitively like, no. Oh, okay, Mr. Scott, yeah. That's true, Crazy for Coke. Saying the country would be better off is not the same as saying it's morally justified. But it wouldn't be better off, and it's still insane to say so. And it certainly sends the signal to anyone listening, is like, well, if it would be better off, maybe someone should do it for utilitarian reasons. Now I go back, when I was defending Destiny, and I'm still not saying that I think Destiny wanted Trump to be shot. Understand, what I was defending was all the jokes he made about Corey Compatore, the firefighter that was killed at the Trump rally, and saying that Trump supporters are effing around and finding out if they go to a Trump rally and they get shot and killed. Most of that I chalked up to just a guy who was on tilt because the news cycle wasn't going well for him, because he saw Biden losing, and so he was lashing out and making jokes. I gave that benefit of the doubt. I said the one comment that caused me pause was when he was talking to his friend or his orbiter Pisco, and he said, Pisco asked him straight up, did you want that bullet to kill Trump? And let me give Pisco a little credit here. Pisco has been completely truthful and upfront that he absolutely condemns and thinks it would be a horrible idea for Trump to be assassinated. Now, that's a very low bar, but not in today's Democratic Party. But I do want to give Pisco credit for that. He has been quite open about that. But when Pisco asked, did you want that bullet to kill Trump? Do you think you should have? Destiny couldn't say, of course not. Now, when Piers Morgan asked Destiny to condemn it, I understand Destiny's answer. It's like, F you, I don't owe you anything. But why, if it's his friend, if it's his orbiter, why would he not be able to, if he truly was like, no, I don't want Trump assassinated, why wouldn't he be able to be like, of course not? Instead, he's like, I don't know, what am I allowed to say? Well, what I will say is, the guy trying to assassinate him and missing is the worst outcome. You see, because it was bad politically. And Pisco, to his credit's like, oh no, the worst outcome would have been if Trump was shot and killed. And he's right, Pisco's right. It would have been the worst outcome for this country. For predictable reasons that I don't need to delve into, the levels of violence would increase on both sides immensely. It'd be very bad for the country. But again, what I said was people started sending me links to Destiny's Reddit. And it was shocking, the shit people were saying there. Well, we tried to beat Trump legally through the legal system, but the Supreme Courts have given him total immunity. So now we have to take other measures. Get it? It's very reminiscent of COVID. I was talking to my friend who is a Democrat who was my campaign manager. And I remember talking to him during the height of COVID insanity. You remember when Reddit had the Herman Cain Awards? Herman Cain was a Republican, ran for president at one point, Trump supporter, and he died of COVID, and he was at a Trump rally and didn't have a mask on. And they said, he had it coming because he didn't wear a mask, which was weird because my understanding was even when they were saying masks work, the argument wasn't that it protects you from getting COVID. It was that if you get COVID, it protects others from you spreading it to them. That seemed to be the argument. So if Herman Cain wasn't wearing the mask, it wouldn't have increased his chance to get COVID according to their own rationale. It would have just increased his chance to spread it to other people. But nonetheless, they mocked him for dying. And I remember talking to my friend, his campaign manager, who's a Democrat, doesn't like Trump, still not voting for Trump, right? Still going to vote for Harris. But I was like, Tom, I think like a quarter of Democrats want people like me that question these policies to die of COVID. And he's like, yeah, it's probably higher than that. That's not a conspiratorial-minded person. That's not a Trump supporter MAGA. That's a moderate Democrat that's like, yeah, I agree. There is an awful lot of people that want you to die of COVID if you went against the official narrative. That's why the Herman Cain Awards exist. You remember the polling? YouGov poll, I believe it was YouGov, that said 28% or something like that of Democrats said that if you weren't vaccinated, children should be taken from your home. I believe it was around 50%, if I'm not mistaken, thought that you should be put in a camp if you weren't vaccinated or arrested. So are we surprised that potentially a quarter of Democrats would say, yeah, I think we'd be better off if Trump got assassinated? Does that surprise anyone? What's up, baby? Now, the debate's not going to be tonight. Kyle hasn't accepted. He offered a challenge. I accepted. The challenge was in general to conservatives. He hasn't got back to me. Is any shock that after this recent assassination attempt a couple days ago, the media didn't even keep up the pretense anymore? They go watch Lester Holt. Almost verbatim, this was Lester Holt's coverage on the day that the former president and frontrunner for one of the two parties, the candidate for president in the next election, had an assassination attempt. And Lester Holt's NBC Nightly, whatever he's on, flagship show on the weekend, assassination attempt of Donald Trump. This comes after he spread racist, dangerous rhetoric encouraging violence in Springfield, Ohio. I was reading somewhere that the coverage of Donald Trump since the assassination attempt has been 95% negative. Vosh is worse by a long shot. Destiny, there's actually things I respect about him. I talk about this a lot. I used to be in this website called Above Top Secret, sort of a conspiracy theory forum, but it basically devolved into just talking politics. So I posted there quite frequently. I didn't delve into a lot of like, you know, there'd be cryptozoology. Is Bigfoot real? I didn't really weigh into that. Aliens, HARP, MK Ultra. I didn't talk a lot of that stuff. We talked politics a lot when I was on there. And it skewed towards favorability to people like Trump. But there were certainly left-wingers on there and people that hated Trump. Some of them you started to get sort of a feel for. Almost everyone's using. If you're interested on Above Top Secret, my screen name was Grambler, Grambler. Grambler, that was my name. And I had a little Bill Hicks avatar as my photo to the person named Bill Hicks in here. I was a big Bill Hicks fan. Would I ever go on a date with Destiny? I'm married. I'm also a heterosexual. Would I, if I was doing an event and Destiny was there, would I go out to dinner with him? Sure. I'm a pretty likable guy. I'm pretty easygoing. Nonetheless, to continue with this story, so there were some left-wing people that I enjoyed engaging with because I thought that they were at least intelligent enough to rebut, and I like that shit. I like it because I like arguing. I do. I like debate. And it encourages me to research more and to get smarter and to get better at my arguments and more knowledgeable when there's pushback. If it's, by the way, now I'm going off on a tangent. It's actually one of the privileges that I have. You hear a lot about white privilege, male privilege. Here's a privilege that I had, being conservative, or being sort of Republican, or I was like a Ron Paul Republican, minarchist, libertarian adjacent, populist. Want to know why? Because I was in a group and an activity that was overwhelmingly left-wing with really smart people. Like, I was pretty good at policy debate in college. I was pretty good. I qualified for the national debate tournament. I was probably top 50 debater in the country when I debated. The people that were ahead of me, particularly at the top level, would crush me, absolutely crush me. But I was pretty good. Pretty good. And that's a pretty good achievement for some hick from fucking rural Pennsylvania going to the cheapest state school in the country, or in the state. Pretty good achievement. But I would be lying if I tried to tell you that I was top 50 smart. Not even close. Like, I would guess that at the national debate tournament, if you would have given everyone an IQ test, I would have been in the bottom 10%. Like, for real. These are some smart sons of bitches. We're talking people that got, like, perfect scores on their SAT. I got, like, when it used to be out of 1,600, I think I got, like, a 1210. That was okay, but that's not great. I'm sort of around average intelligence. I happen to be good at arguing, and I was good at persuading individual judges as to why my point of view was correct, but that's not just a direct measure of intelligence. There's a lot that goes into that. Thanks, AB. I appreciate it. But I digress. Understand, that style of debate is a very particular game. So being a top 50 debater in that game probably doesn't translate to being a top 50 debater in the country of the style of debate that you're used to seeing. Nonetheless, I think I'm a pretty good debater in the style that you're used to seeing, as is evidenced by the fact that I debate a lot, and I think I do very well. But I digress. The fact that I was surrounded by all of these intelligent people that literally would eviscerate or attempt to eviscerate any political argument I made in the real world was actually a privilege. Because iron sharpens iron. You want intelligent people pushing back against you. It makes you better. Conversely, if you are a celebrity and no one ever pushes back against you, all of a sudden you're like Ben Affleck going on Bill Maher's show back in the day. That's racist. That's right. And it's like, you don't know anything. But you've just had yes men around you your whole life, so no one stopped to tell you, like, actually you're wrong. And so you think that you're an expert on a particular topic and you don't know anything. Because no one ever... I haven't taken that test, Commander. No one ever told you. No one ever disagreed with you. And I think there's so many people like that, particularly younger people that go through academia. You probably went through a grade school and high school that most of your teachers were left-wing. When you watched entertainment, your favorite musicians, your favorite actors, probably left-leaning. Then you go off to college, they're even more left-leaning. And so when you run into someone that's not just a caricature, but it's someone who has a different opinion that's right-leaning, and it's like, you can't even relate. You're just like, what is this? This is horseshit. That you're racist, you're bigot, whatever. You're evil, you're a Nazi. I don't even know. I can't even articulate what your argument is. So that's actually a disservice. I feel bad for those people. Is debating online about defending points you actually believe in or about winning? It depends on what you want to do. For me, it's about debating shit I actually believe in. I want to win, but that's totally secondary. Now, there are specific debates that you tell people up front, look, I'm debating the devil's advocate position, but 99.9 to... I would say 99% of the debates I've done, I'm arguing what I really believe. The only exception that I could think of is like when we used to do the randomizer debates on the Crucible. So it would be shit like, Rob, defend why you're an incel. That's clearly a joke debate and, stuff like that. So anyways, back to this above top secret story. I enjoyed people that pushed back. I didn't want an echo chamber, even on this channel. That's why I spend more time talking to the people that disagree with me than the people that agree, because that's what I like. That's what I enjoy doing. I like debate. So you'd get to know, almost everyone's using a pseudonym or, an avatar, whatever. Fake names, anonymous names. But you'd get to know their little picture and their name. And there were some left-wingers that I enjoyed interacting with. And one of them was a guy by the name of True Brit. I believe he was British. And you started to get, he had an avatar, I think it was actually him. He had long black hair and was like drinking a beer. So I recognize these things when you're posting. And if I remember, he was a socialist or a communist. But he could make intelligent points. And I remember, after Charlottesville, I was doing a lot of debating with people. And there was a thread that True Brit was on. And he said something that caused me to raise my eyebrow. And he said that at this point, Trump is a Nazi, clearly, And anyone who sympathizes with Trump or still supports him is also a Nazi or a Nazi supporter. And we have to deal with Nazis and Nazi supporters in the strongest possible way if necessary. That's basically, not verbatim, but that's basically what he said. So I decided to do a little back and forth with him. What does that mean? So it's like, anyone who supports Trump's a Nazi. Well, if you supported him before, but now you renounce him, you're not a Nazi. But yes, after Charlottesville, if you still support Trump, you're a Nazi. And I was like, when you say we need to stop Nazis, what do you mean? We need to beat them at the ballot box and stuff like that. We need to use basically the least possible force necessary to beat them. I was like, okay, but let's say that doesn't work. Let's say 2020 comes along and it looks like Trump's going to win. What does that mean? Well, we have to stop them by any means necessary. My ancestors fought the Nazis on the beaches of Normandy and blah, 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 blah. We have to use physical violence if necessary. How much physical violence? Any hims and haws? I was like, execution? Murder? Well, it's not murder because you're defending yourself, but yeah, it could be lethal force. And he's just saying this nonchalantly, like two buddies talking back and forth. And he believes it. And I'm like, so what you're saying is that anyone that supports Trump's a Nazi or a Nazi sympathizer, and if it looks like Trump's going to win the 2020 election and you can't beat him at the ballot box, that we need to exterminate all Trump supporters. And he's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just matter of fact, right out there. Big old meatball. We should commit genocide against all Trump supporters if it looks like Trump's going to win. Now, this is a guy, he has some batshit opinions. He's sort of a communist. But I'm taking it back. This is on a public forum, mind you. A public forum where supposedly calls to violence is something that's against terms of service. Now, I'm not going to report someone for TOS. I don't give a shit. But I was shocked. I'm like, are you shitting me? And then all these lefties started to come in to this dude's defense. Well, he's not really saying that. What he's saying is he can envision a world of Trump winning that would get bad enough that we need to kill Trump and all of his supporters. No, he said if it looks like Trump's going to win the election, that would be his threshold. But even still, how can you defend that? And again, it's going back to that Ben Affleck, Sam Harris thing, right? One of the things, Sam Harris is a nut job, he's terrible. One of the things he used to talk about, and I think this is true, the vast majority of Muslims aren't engaged in acts of terrorism, of course. In fact, it's only like, we're talking billions of people, but I forget what the numbers, I used to know these numbers, it's like 3 to 4% or something like that. International Muslims have used violence for religious or political purposes. It's not really, that's a scary group, and a group, 3% out of billions of people is a lot of people. But it's the next group that's scarier. And that's like 15 to 20% or something that don't personally engage in the violence, but they support it. Now you're getting close to like 20% that will use or support violence. That's insane. And that's when I'm seeing numbers like polling that shows, well, 28% of Democrats say the world would be better off if Trump was killed. They're not saying I'd do it, but they'd say, if someone did it, I might not say it's morally justified, but I'd be like, well, good, that's done with. That's fucking insane. That's insane. These are the same people that will yell about my democracy. And you can see it. Go to my X post from a couple days ago. My post wasn't, I'm blaming left-wing rhetoric for the attacks on Trump. That's not what I said. What I said was, seeing as how the news cycle on Sunday before the assassination attempt was inundated with Trump's rhetoric and Vance's rhetoric is responsible for threats and violence in Springfield, Ohio. His rhetoric caused that. And we've seen this narrative over and over again. Trump's rhetoric causes violence against left-wingers, against minorities, against Democrats, etc., against Asian Americans, etc. If that's the standard that's going to be employed, and then later in that day we have an assassination attempt from someone who's apparently the alleged person, we started to see their social media posts were saying things like Trump's a threat to democracy. Okay. Shouldn't they hold themselves to the same standard? It's not my standard. It's their standard. They want to talk about rhetoric from Trump causing violence. So shouldn't they say, oh shit, now someone who tried to assassinate the president repeated our rhetoric? So my standard would be, look, you should be careful with your rhetoric, but if you truly believe it, you should be allowed to say it. And I don't hold you responsible if some nut job goes out there and does something. You should be careful. You should let people know that violence isn't the answer to this stuff. But I'm not blaming you personally. But if you are blaming right-wingers or Trump or etc. for their rhetoric causing direct acts of violence, then why shouldn't that same standard be applied to you? And if you look at the overwhelming amount of responses to me from left-wing people, because I have a small following on X, and so when a left-wing person responds that has hundreds of thousands of followers, most of the responses, I'm basically going to get ratioed. Most of the responses are from people in their community. And most of those responses were like, Trump brought it on himself. Good. Now, I talked about this last night. I think politics are immensely important. I really do. Everything I say on here, unless I'm telling you up front, like, I don't know how long you guys have been around, but trans positive Rob, trans people are as close to angels and godliness as we could get. Us that are cis need to marvel at the beauty of trans people and understand that they are so intelligent that we can't fathom what they go through and what they're talking about. If two trans people disagree on the topic, as cis people, it's our responsibility to stand down and leave those noble, godly trans people speak for all of us. That's what our role as cis people are. You may get the impression that I'm being a little hyperbolic and facetious. Other than that, everything I'm telling you is what I believe. Only I do have my notebook. It's true. Ask me about my pronouns. Don't worry, Transpositive Rob will come back someday. It's been about 2 years. He'll be back. So I think politics is important. Don't get me wrong. But I think being a father is more important. I think being a good husband is more important. I think being a good son and a good brother and a good neighbor is more important. And maybe it's wrong. Maybe someone could argue with me that I'm wrong because I talk about these important things and I believe them. But I sort of compartmentalize it. And so when I leave this stream, I'm a pretty happy person. I go and hang out with my family. I don't talk about politics a lot. That's who I am. I do this for my enjoyment. It's my hobby. Maybe someday it'll be my career. But right now it's my hobby. Brings in a little extra money, but it's a hobby. That's what it is. I do it because it's fun. And I want to engage with people that I have fun engaging with. And a precursor to having fun engaging with someone is they don't want me to fucking be killed because of my politics. That's sort of a precursor. I want to talk to people that in their head are thinking like, I hope this guy gets fucking murdered because of who he's supporting. I don't want to do that. I want to assume when I debate someone like Hutch or Pondering Politics or Pisco or Destiny or Dylan Burns or I'm Really Important or insert any of the other litany of people I've debated, they might be like, fuck this guy, he's shit, blah, 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 blah. But I don't wish physical harm to him. I don't want him to lose his job. I don't want him to lose his house. That's how I operate. And I have to believe that. Even if it's not true, I have to believe it. Because to the point where I don't want to engage with those people, which I want to engage with those people. So my own bias is to give the benefit of the doubt to people. I've not been given any money by any organization, including conservative think tanks, for anything. Only money I've received is in the form of super chats, donations, subscriptions. So I understand people are like, no, Rob, you're wrong. This is what these people believe. Ricky says, that's what Destiny believes. Maybe, but I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. That's what I'm doing. Because I have to. If I had definitive proof, my level of proof required will be higher because of my predisposition and my bias to want to have fun engaging with people even that disagree with me. That doesn't mean that there isn't a level of proof that I could eventually get that would say, okay, that's it. I truly believe they want me killed or fired. Fuck them. I'm not dealing with them anymore. That could happen. But I'm not there with all the people that I mentioned. So I take no pleasure in streaming talking about assassination attempts. My least favorite week in recent memory of streaming was after the first assassination attempt of Trump, which happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, which is less than an hour away from me, which happened at the Butler Fairgrounds, which I've been to many times. It fucking sucked. It sucked a lot. And if you go back and you watch, I could have been spiking the ball if I'm just playing politics. I could have been taking clips from Destiny on Piers Morgan and saying, you see? This is who the left is. You see? But that's not what I was doing. Instead, I was reaching out to people like, hey, can we talk about the need to like sort of at least start with the baseline that we're against assassination attempts? Can we do that? The pretty simple shit. And I was getting weird pushback. People are like, well, what do you mean, well? How is this hard? And so when I read shit like this, polls show that 28% of Democrats think we'd be better off if Trump was assassinated. I don't like that. I don't like putting a post out that's like, hey, if Democrats are going to blame Trump for his rhetoric, are they responsible for their rhetoric? And having post after post like, Trump has it coming. I don't like the media basically signaling immediately following the second assassination attempt, well, it's Trump's rhetoric's fault. Yeah, Imaginarium, we covered that earlier. Yeah. I didn't hear Destiny's comment about taking his Glock to go after Trump supporters. I didn't hear it. Now, devil's advocate. Are there people on the right that would have extreme rhetoric like that as well? Yeah, but they're far less prominent, and I think quantity-wise, there's far less of them. But sure, fuck those people too. Sure, it's possible that Trump's a hateful, unlikable guy. I could list many, many people of that. I don't want them killed. That's like saying, well, that woman that was the victim of sexual assault, could it be possible that she's just too promiscuous? I guess. Is that where we're heading? Millions of people think Kamala Harris is very unlikable. So, what's the logical extension of that question? We're talking about 1/4 of Democrats being polled saying, yeah, we'd be better off if Trump was killed. And your response is, well, maybe it's just because Trump's unlikable. Sure. There's millions of people that think Kamala Harris is very unlikable. In fact, that was one of the biggest criticisms of her. So would we be okay if 28% of Republicans were like, I think we'd better off if Kamala Harris got assassinated? Of course not. I would be disgusted by that. I'd say, wait, what? Not to the same level of Trump. So what? So a bunch of unhinged people hate Trump more, so therefore it's more understandable that they want him killed? It's fucking insane. By the way, none of those people hated Trump as much before he was running for office. Maybe a lot of them hate Trump that much because they've believed the hoaxes about Trump. That he's a Nazi racist who wants a bloodbath if he loses and thinks Nazis are fine people. And told people to drink bleach. So because people believe that tripe, oh, well, they hate him more. So it's understandable that 1/4 of Democrats want him killed. If that's the case, shouldn't we look at the rhetoric? Especially if people's standard is, well, Trump's rhetoric's causing hatred on the other side. Shouldn't we ask those people to look at their own standards? Want to know how many people base pod? Why don't you go to Reddit or Discord communities of left-wingers I debate? And why don't you see what their audience says about how hated I am, how much they hate me? Does that mean it's understandable because I'm so hated? Fuck, I've had people say that I'm a transphobe, I want to commit genocide against trans people, I hate all gay people, I want gay people locked up. All of this is bullshit, but that's what people have said, that I'm a Nazi, that I'm for the destruction of democracy, that I'm a Russian stooge, that I want Russia to win. People believe that will be very hateful towards me. So does that mean I should just expect, because of that rhetoric, for 1/4 of people that watch me that are Democrats say, we'd be better off if Trump was, or if Rob was assassinated. Is that where we're at? Bullshit. I don't buy the victim blaming. Assassination attempt. Well, it's on Trump. He should be more decent with his rhetoric. Fuck that. No. Well, she should wear a longer dress. Tree Guy says, maybe the assassination attempt's not from rhetoric. Could be true. How do you explain 1/4 of Democrats, if it's true, if this poll's accurate, saying 28% of Democrats saying we'd be better off if Trump was assassinated? That's right, concerned American. That's a perfectly rational response. Say, I hate this guy, but I don't want him assassinated. But when we're talking about Democrats being bold, and 28% saying, yeah, we'd be better off if he is dead, and then another 20% saying, I don't know, maybe we would be better off. That's fucking insane. Is it okay to punch a Nazi? Remember that debate? I remember. That was even before I was streaming. I remember on blogs talking to people like, the answer is no. For a litany of reasons. But the most obvious of which is, once you say yes, then you're a small step from saying, great, and that person I don't like, he's a Nazi. Oh, you wanted Roe v. Wade overturned? You're a Nazi. And you already agreed it's okay to punch a Nazi, so now it's okay to punch you. And if it's okay to punch, then surely the implication would be it's okay to lie about them, and it's okay to get them fired, and it's okay to report them to the police, and it's okay to take away their basic rights. Right? But that's where we were. And you see the experiment play out. People engage. Rhetoric against, words against Democrats on places like college campus were considered violence. So if someone like Ben Shapiro or Milo Yiannopoulos or Gavin McInnes wants to speak at a college campus, that's violence. Those words are violence. Therefore, you're justified in using self-defense of using violence against the people that are attempting to go there, like at Berkeley. That's what happened. Sure, I could use, it's not whataboutism. If you say that it's okay to use violence to prevent Nazis, then it would be the same as saying it's okay to use violence to prevent an average Joe who happens to be a Nazi. Yes, it absolutely. You might say that the threat level of the person that you're calling a Nazi is not as high if you're comparing a normal person to the President of the United States, but then the only thing that's withholding the highest level of violence against them is what their political impact could be. In other words, you would say, well, some guy on the street that you think's evil and you hate, that person can't affect you negatively that much because there's some guy on the street. But once they become a big streamer and there's hundreds of thousands of people watching, like say maybe Tim Pool, if you think he's a Nazi, then the level escalates that you would justify that you're allowed to do. Because obviously it's all self-defense and it's okay to punch a Nazi. So you could dox him. You could SWAT him. You could maybe even use physical violence if that's what the situation calls for. Then if Tim Pool or someone like him, if you go to the next level of someone who's a senator like Rand Paul, well, it's okay to use violence against them. It's okay to cheer for the neighbor breaking his ribs and tackling him. It's okay when he's leaving the RNC or a Trump rally for him to get mobbed with him and his wife. All of that's okay because after all, he's not a normal Joe now. He's still a Nazi, but now he's a senator. Then when it gets higher level and it's someone that's president, well, now maybe the most lethal option is on the table because after all, still a Nazi, but now he's the president. So you can't compare that to normal people? Bullshit. I say absolutely you can. If that's your argument, then you're saying the only withholding force for the worst outcomes are the person's achievable cultural or political power. Which is why someone like me won't get as negatively affected as someone like Tim Pool, because I'm small potatoes. But as I grow, then I get more negative outcomes. And it's justified because, well, after all, Rob supported Donald Trump. Donald Trump's a Nazi, so Rob supported a Nazi. Didn't watch the Tim Pool Crucible debate about rights, so I can't really report on it. Physical violence is justified against Nazis, so their physical violence is just defense. But if you're a Nazi, which is anyone that they disagree with, then your words are physical violence. So if a Trump supporter does something violent to a Democrat, that's because of Trump's rhetoric. But if a Democrat does something violent to Trump or a Trump supporter, that's still because of Trump's rhetoric. You see how that works? Of course, Basebud, of course. The hatred, vitriol, and the tactics used would be more severe against the Republican or against the president than an average Joe Schmo. But the comparison works in that basically the level of tactic being used is always justified. You just escalate with the power that the person you're targeting does. So the homeless guy that you think's a racist, you're like, fuck you, and walk away. But the president you think you're racist, 28% of people were like, assassinate him. Yeah, I agree, Taylor. All of it does suck. It fucking sucks. I totally agree. It sucks a lot. I don't like it. I don't have fun with it. I don't like talking about it. And I know people say, oh, you know, you're full of shit, blah, blah, blah. It's why so many people in my audience give me shit when I'm doing something like defending Destiny and his rhetoric. Or how many people in my audience are like, I fucking hate Pisco. He's the worst. And I'm like, I kind of like Pisco. I like talking to him. I've said that shit for years. Why? Because you have to understand where I'm coming from. I like these debates. I have fun. I like disagreeing with people. But I don't want to think the worst of them. Or it's not fun anymore. Of course I would debate Cenk Uygur. Of course. Of course! Now, having said that, I don't think there's not one shred of doubt that I have that Pisco has been forcefully against these sort of calls of violence. Cenk thinks he beat up Churro. Maybe, who knows? Maybe Cenk's a badass and we just don't know it. I would say the skill level of anyone who's trained in any sort of MMA would probably surprise the average person. Even a little bit of training, I think, goes a long way. So I'm unaware of any training that Cenk Uyghur's had. But my guess would be Cenk would lose to 95% of people that have significantly trained, even at a low level, of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, any other style of MMA fighting. That's my guess. By the way, another thing, just an aside, I always think it's funny when people think they could beat up professional athletes. Like, remember the Malice in the Palace with Ron Artest? Like, dude, an NBA player would kick your fucking ass. Like, you understand? They're like damn near peak physical condition. Like, I always think that stuff's funny. It's like, of course, says Cenk. But I want to come on here and have fun. I want to talk about political things that I think are important, but I don't want to be it to be so depressing that I'm wondering if the person I'm talking to in the other line wants me dead or wants me fired or wants me kicked off these platforms. I don't want that shit. I have no love for it. I understand politically, hyper-focusing on that shit and even being hyperbolic about it benefits my side politically. Hell, I understand it would probably benefit me with more clicks. I don't want to do it. Which is why, as I said in last night's show, the irony of Destiny saying, well, the reason that Pisco's defended me, that he thought it was ridiculous that Destiny rage quit and then blacklisted me, must be because me and Pisco were secret friends from way back when. First time I ever had a conversation with Pisco, audio conversation, not on air, was literally reaching out to Pisco after fucking Destiny seemed to be on tilt after the first assassination attempt, and just being like, hey man, is he okay? Like, someone check in on him, let him know everything's gonna be all right. Don't say anything that'll jeopardize your career. That's it. Why? Not because I want to be Destiny's buddy, not because I want word to get back to Destiny so he'll be like, oh, what a cool guy, but because I like debating him. Because I truly was biased into thinking he doesn't mean what the people are saying that he means, that he wants Trump killed. Because I'm biased to not want that because I like debating him. So I wanted to make sure he didn't say something that would stick with him that he didn't believe. That's it. And I know, and here's another thing. When someone's going through a difficult life situation, and I don't give a shit who you are, a divorce is a stressful situation, or there could be other things that are going on in people's lives that you don't know about. Sometimes you could do and say things that you regret. I don't want to see that even for people that I disagree with. I don't have this hatred for even the people that I genuinely dislike on these platforms. I'm not sitting there ruminating that I hope their channel falls apart. I hope they get censored. I hope they go to jail. That's not who I am. If that's who you are, more power to you. I don't care. If you think that a specific person has done something incredibly heinous and deserves, fine, whatever. Alex Jones crashing chink show as we speak. Saw some clips from old Alex Jones shit from back in the day of public access, I think in Austin. Man, incredible, like from 1997. Maybe so, Jazz. I don't wade into people's personal life. Very few exceptions. Leave that to other people. Not my spiel. I would appreciate if people leave my wife and child out of things. So I'm going to give other people the same courtesy. That's how I approach things. So you'll be hard-pressed to ever find me talking about people's relationship. It's just how it is. Now, if someone talks about your wife and kids and you're justified to talk about theirs, sure, why not? Meet force with force in that sense, I guess, but I try to stay out of it. And it's worked well for me. There have been some shitty things said about my wife and child, but it's very rare, and I'd like to keep it that way. Because, Neo Jackass, I'd like to see the downfall of that ideology, but not necessarily of the people. I know it doesn't make sense to people, but I'm just telling you who I legitimately am and what I legitimately think. So, and I understand. I did a whole video, a 3-hour video about how I'm weak. And how people say, Rob's too much of a pussy to do what needs to be done. Maybe. Maybe true. But I am who I am. I can't change who I am at my core. Now, maybe some life event changes. Maybe I go through something like the movie Death Wish and, the worst happens to my wife and kid. And then all of a sudden I fucking snap and I become someone different. That's possible. But it's not who I am right now. Yeah, I saw when Crowder showed up to Chenk's panel dress. Of course! So, and here's the thing. Like, I don't have these illusions of grandeur anymore. That was me as a young man. I want to live long and healthy and be a grandpa and be a great dad to my kid and be a great husband. That's what I want. I want to have enough money so I could go do fun shit, like get an RV and travel around. And keep streaming and doing things that I like as a hobby. Maybe do it as a career, whatever. Yes, I want more money. Fuck, I'd be happy to make $5 million a year. But at my core, I'd be the same person. That's what I want. I don't have to be the smartest, best debater, conservative influencer, but I don't have to be that. I'm more than happy for it to be someone else. I think I'm oftentimes the best that we have on these debate panels. But I used to say this. I was like, particularly before like Andrew Wilson, I'm not the most right-wing guy. More than half of my audience disagrees with me that I support gay marriage. I routinely argue against. I just did a debate last Thursday on why women should be allowed to vote. Much of my audience would disagree with that. I'm not super right-wing. I'm more of a populist and then sort of libertarian adjacent and right-wing, but I thought it was funny that as far as right-wing debaters go, who else you got that's talented? Some dude comes along and has similar beliefs at me. He's 10 times better at debating. Fuck it. Go for it, man. All for it. Don't have to be me. Yeah, I liked Crowder's old skits, like when he would do Bane and shit. I thought it was funny. Yeah, Shapiro, he's not really doing the same spaces that I am, but sure. Because, concerned American, I don't think that your right to vote or have say in this country should be diminished because of an immutable characteristic. So, I get concerned. Whether or not you're a woman or not, I understand. You're making that point to say, like, you're not saying that because you're a man that wants to more enfranchise yourself. So I get that. But yeah, that's where I come from. Lib, Drew the dog man. Lib, yeah. Hey man, the Crucible audience the other night, they're giving me hard. They were saying my wife, clearly the masculine one in our relationship. And now listen, that's different, right? Because they're mocking me. They're not mocking my wife. They're giving me shit. But they were serious that they really hated my opinions on that. That's okay. Reasoning level? I don't know what you mean. Yeah, that's why I'm not a full libertarian. I believe that my core value is liberty, is giving individuals personal freedom. But I do believe in limitations on that. So when I'm evaluating government actions, my default is always to try to give people as much liberty and freedom as possible. But each situation requires sort of a threshold argument. So even though I'm for free speech, does that mean that you should be allowed to go on YouTube and try to hook up with 10-year-olds if you're an adult? No. That's a limit on speech that I'm willing to accept. Jim Bob is smart and funny. I like Jim Bob a lot. Now, you'll have to watch that debate, Concerned American. All this stuff came up. No, they shouldn't have to sign up for the draft. The debate between me and Secular Talk is probably not going to happen. It's not official. Secular Talk issued a challenge to conservatives that would debate on the topic of whether or not rhetoric was responsible for the assassination attempts on Trump. I answered that call publicly and said, yes, I would be more than happy to do that, and haven't had any response from them. So admittedly, the title of my video was a little clickbaity tonight, but I apologize for that. But it got people watching. No, Concerned American, I know you're not trying to give me a hard time. It's totally reasonable. No, I still believe that when it comes to things like that, that the draft is an emergency situation that requires an effective fighting force. And in general, when it comes to an emergency situation like that of people that haven't been properly trained, that the ideal situation would be to prioritize men because of the generalities of the differences between men and women, and have women do things that could benefit the country in this time of emergency back home. However, I think the minimum of having a say in your country should not be discriminated based on immutable characteristics like race or sex. Women have to pay taxes, so they should have representation. Thanks, Pim. I also think I won the Jim Bob debate. That's possible, Legends Reign. I'm not really good with labels. Labels are important and necessary and inevitable, but I don't know. I try to be as transparent as possible with what I believe. But yeah, I've had people call me a minarchist, paleo, conservative, populist. I consider myself first and foremost a populist, which by that I mean I think that our institutions are corrupt and designed to control hegemony of the consolidation of power, and they don't care about the voices of the average person. And I find that to be a prima facie issue that we need to deal with. That's what I mean by populist, giving a voice to the people. I think that we currently are in a system that they're almost voiceless for the people, whether you be white, black, straight, gay, white, or right-wing, left-wing, Republican, Democrat, etc. Then next on that scale, I would say I'm libertarian adjacent or minarchist, where I value the idea of individual freedom and liberty, but do understand that we have a role for government. And then after that, I consider myself conservative. Hey, Rob, have you reached out to Destiny since your debate to see if he'd want to finish? I did not. I reached out to Destiny the night of the debate and said, hey, no hard feelings. Enjoyed the conversation. Was shocked to find out that he was saying I was blacklisted the next day. I haven't reached out since. Fuck him. If he wants to be a child and blacklist me, fuck him. I don't care. I'm not reaching out. So that's that. Where's the quacking duck? I don't know. Right there, I guess. What if both attempts turned out to be an establishment plot? There's the rub, right? For example, I thought the ideal candidate this time was Vivek Ramaswamy. But is he just telling me what I want to hear and it's actually part of some establishment plot? Maybe. Hey, Rob Scratch, again, willing to debate tonight. I would say yes if you would have said so an hour ago, but I'm probably going to be wrapping up here. So, James Hake, I don't No. Jesse Lee Peterson, I think that a little cartoonish, but I think he's a genuine person that believes what he's talking about and a lot of his values. Well, I didn't see you, magnificent macaroons. I didn't see you an hour ago. You wouldn't be pulling my leg, would you? Because I could check. Let's find out when you first said that. Oops. I don't see a time on it. So I guess I can't check. Yeah, I saw it was a little while ago, but you can call in tomorrow night. We're having open call-in, so you can call in. What major conservative commentator do I disagree with the most? I don't know. I have a bone to pick with Ben Shapiro. I think he's the last person across the finish line sometimes. I remember over and over during the obvious corrupt Russiagate scandal, him saying, let's not attribute to corruption, which could be ineptitude. I think that mentality is exactly how we've gotten to where we are. What's good? Can you shout me out at the Noob Lit YouTube? I need 50 subs to go live. Sure, I don't know anything about you, but if people want to throw you a sub at the Noob Lit, by all means. Let's see. I'm looking at booking some debates in the future. Could see if your topic interests you. I'll pretty much debate any topic that involves politics. The topics that I'm most concerned with are corruption in our institutions. But if you reach out to me, I'm sure I would do a panel. I dislike panels extremely, and I should stop doing them. But to me, the ideal panel is 2-on-2, is as big as it gets for a panel. I prefer one-on-one debates. Russia interests me. The rubles. I do Call of Duty vids. Oh, okay. Yeah, shit. Yeah, I'll support that. As long as you're not doing anything heinous, yeah. Give him a shout out. Give him a sub so he can go live. What's your thoughts on the Fed seizing? Oh, Diddy, I forgot I was going to talk about Diddy. Diddy do it? I forgot all about Diddy. Yeah, that was the topic I was missing. Woo, Diddy. I don't know. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, this is like Epstein-esque, and this is going to root out some really powerful people. You sure about that? You sure about that? No way. No way. Maybe. I put it at less than 1%. There ain't gonna be shit of anyone that's really a powerful mover and shaker that's gonna go down for some shit like that over this. No chance that this FBI that covered up for Epstein for years is gonna do that. There is no chance. None. It'll be wrapped up in a nice... By the way, how's Ghislaine Maxwell, how's her client list doing? How many people are arrested on that? But it'll be different this time with Diddy. Now, there's always a chance, but get the fuck out of here. How could people still believe it? How could people still believe that oh, this is it. Now they're going to finally bring the hammer down. The same corrupt FBI that let Epstein get away with it for years and then didn't go after anyone on Ghislaine Maxwell's list. Now they're going to get him with Diddy. If I had to guess, I would say the most likely scenario is there are probably some powerful people that are movers and shakers that's implicated in Diddy's stuff. But the reason they're going after Diddy is probably he threatened those people. And so by going after Diddy, they're sending a strong signal to him. You better not give up the goods on anyone that really matters. Sure, you can get some random entertainment people. But do you think it's going to be like, oh, this major politician? No chance. Now, the other thing to talk about with this whole thing. Woo, boy. Let's get into some fucking race stuff, right? Get me in trouble. Get my channel banned here. I have the utmost respect for people that are tribal and want to talk about an affinity for a group they have. That's what I do. My group's not racial based. It's not even religion based. It's rural Americans. I feel that rural Americans' way of life has been largely demonized or overlooked. We have almost no institutional power. No one even pays lip service to the causes that we face. And we're treated like shit, like the enemy, like racist, bigot, shitheads, blah, blah, blah. But seeing as how that's the group that I have an affinity for, who would I be to criticize someone else that says I have an affinity for this group, such as women? If you're a woman and you say, I'm concerned about women's issues, absolutely you should be able to do that. Or a man and you're concerned about men's issues, absolutely. Or a black person and you're concerned about black issues, sure, why not? Or a white person and you're primarily concerned about white issues, absolutely, go for it. All of us have an in-group that we tend to speak of and are concerned more about. Some of it's based on race, some of it's based on religion, some of it's based on economics, etc. Political philosophy. So I'm not blaming anyone. I don't have a problem with black Americans coming together as a group and saying we're going to advocate for the cause of black Americans. I don't have a problem with Jewish Americans coming together, or Jewish people in general coming together and say we're going to advocate for the cause of Jews. None of that bothers me. I might disagree with them. They might take actions that I consider particularly heinous in the name of that shit, like Black Lives Matter. But I don't begrudge the effort. Metal people, metalheads, there you go. So, having said that, I don't know that I'm breaking any news here, but I'm not black. I'm not a black gentleman. I know that might be earth-shattering to some of you, but it's true. I'm not black. Unfollowing, says Taylor. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I know. Shocking. The truth comes out this evening. Yeah, Wicked Wally knows it. I'm not black. There it is. All right, I'll leave you guys. So I thought it was interesting when I was watching some of these interviews with like Shannon Sharp, where he's talking to like Cat Williams, or he's talking to 50 Cent, or like some of the interviews with the Wayans, or I think, not Queen Latifah, other ladies, like a black comedian who's in the entertainment industry. And I'm listening to some of them, Ice Cube. And I'm starting to get this very noob-like, just peering through the smallest entry level into this shit. Monique, that's it. I'm starting to get this, like, image. You tell me if you think I'm misrepresenting this picture that I'm getting from this. I think there are black entertainers. You might think they're terrible. You might not like their message. You might not like their politics. You might not like their morality. You might think that they're not entertaining at all. However, they've achieved a level of popularity. Through music, through movies, through comedy, whatever. They feel like they're the moneymaker. They're the one that's bringing in. So let's just limit it to music. You're the one creating the album. You're the one that's out there singing or rapping or whatever. But there's this studio behind you, and they're raking in the big bucks. And so then maybe those people in that studio, they don't look like people in your community. And you might say, I feel like there's a bunch of people from our black community that are making people a bunch of money that aren't black. Maybe we want to be the people that own the studio. Maybe that's the idea. And maybe if I own the studio, and I'm a black guy that, was a musician, maybe I'll be more charitable to other black entertainers that are coming up. Sort of spread the wealth more, because I give a shit. Maybe. And maybe it would be frustrating if you have to jump through certain hoops that you don't want to, because these people run the show. And just before anyone accuses me, I'm not talking Jewish people. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying any number of people that these black entertainers don't feel like are part of their community. White, Hispanic, Asian, Jewish, whatever. And that's... Fuck other black people that they don't consider part of their in-group preference. Whatever. And so then, like, from that level, and you could say, well, that's shit, that's racism, blah, blah, blah. Maybe. But again, I've already started on the default position. I don't mind them having an in-group preference and defending for issues they see of that in-group. I don't mind that. Just like I defend rural Americans. Maybe it's people who got a thing for beers, right? No, I'm not talking about Jewish people. That's not what I'm talking. So, like, when I hear someone like Dave Chappelle at one point, I remember he gave this speech and was like, every black comedian that did movies, they asked to put in a dress. And so I forget what movie it was, and they were like, you need to wear a dress. He's like, fuck that. No, I'm not going to. Fuck you. The Prawn says, thanks so much, Super Chat for $5. Says, thanks, Rob. I'll reach out about a debate via X. No problem. XDM's the best place to reach me, so set it up. And it's like, was that really a big deal? To Chappelle it was. Because Chappelle was like, it's like a humiliation ritual. To him. Now, maybe it's not, but that's how he felt. And he was like, fuck all that. No, I'm going to do my own thing. And then you see someone like Ice Cube. And they're like, they tried to make me take the vax. I said, fuck that. No, I'll do my own thing. I'm not going to go through a bunch of people that don't represent my community telling me that I have to jump through certain hoops. Fuck all that. And then he basically gets sort of blackballed from the traditional studios. Then you got someone like Cat Williams. And he's talking like very vague. But he's like, there's some crazy shit going on behind the scenes. Right? And you got to play ball with this crazy shit if you want to advance your career. And he's specifically mentioning Diddy. And he's like, don't you worry. It's all going to come out. Now, I'm just reading into shit. I really am. I really am reading into it. But I sympathize. I sympathize with thinking that, like, I look at it this way. What if I all of a sudden was like, you know what, fuck it. I win the lottery. And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a platform for people like me, rural Americans that want to have a voice. I don't give a fuck your skin color or whatever, but that's what I want. And then all of a sudden I found out that there's like this glass ceiling, that there's all these things, like the people that are already in the game are like, no, fuck that. We're not going to let you do this shit. You're going to be blacklisted. You're not going to have a voice and blah, blah, blah. I can see the frustration in that. And so, in general, taking just the black community out of it, you hear all this crazy shit about Hollywood. About young kids that come through Hollywood and are, you know, I think you know what I'm talking about. Sort of treated like pieces of meat. And it's one of those things that's, hell, even you can go beyond that. The Harvey Weinstein, it's one of those things that's whispered about and everyone alleges it, but no one really talks about it. At least the people that are involved, right? The people that are, no one really says anything. There's Oprah introducing young starlets to Harvey Weinstein. And everybody knows the rumor, and they'll joke about it on Family Guy and shit, but no one really doing shit about it. Everyone's just like, eh. Or Roman Polanski. Right? So, if you believe that about Hollywood, would the music industry be any different? Is it so unbelievable that when you have these people that are considered talented and that money could be made, such as maybe, you know, someone who was like legitimately shot like 50 Cent, who like seems to legitimately come from like a life that I don't understand and these producers don't understand, that they'll be like, well, we're going to control you. You're going to jump through some hoops. And if you don't, and by the way, you're never going to get the opportunity to be like me. You're not going to be the guy running the show. You could be the face. You could be the dancing person out there performing, but you ain't going to be me. You're not going to be the guy in the background. So I think the implication of what these people were saying was like, Diddy represents someone that's a point person for them. All this crazy shit, blackmail shit's going on through that. Then they got you. Now they can control you. know. Maybe all bullshit. But that's sort of what I'm reading between the lines in a community that I have no connection to, and I'm totally in the dark about. But listening to these people talk candidly, like, there are these, like, you got to jump through these hoops. You're just like this performer for them. And they make it quite clear. You're going to do this, this, and this. And there's some dark shit going on behind the scenes. And if you don't play ball and you say, you know what, I'm going to go out and do my own shit independently. Just recently, who was it? Sean Wayans? I think it was talking to Shannon Sharp. He talked about this. You might hate the Wayans brothers. I happen to think they're funny, right? I thought In Living Color was a hilarious show. That show was made by the Wayans brothers. And my wife tells me even his sister was involved at the show. But that was the show. That was In Living Colors. And basically, they wanted rid of Marlon, or one of them, and the brothers stuck together and was like, fuck that. So they just took over the show. And it's like, you might not like the Wayans brothers. You might not think that show was funny. But that show was them. They were the creative behind it. They were the performers. And I understand that legally and through a system of capitalism, yeah, you understand that. Like, it's not just, well, labor's entitled to everything. But the idea that they were like, you know what? We're going to go out on our own. But then it's not that simple. There's all these things going on behind the scenes. Maybe you're not getting the opportunities you got to because you're not playing ball in the way you want. And again, this might sound ridiculous. It might. And I get that. And I could be totally wrong. And maybe if Cat Williams was on here, he'd be like, shut the fuck up. What are you talking about? You're totally misrepresenting what I was trying to say. Could be true. I don't know. I'm just giving my honest opinion. But did you see that recent Nickelodeon documentary? If my wife's still watching, what was it called? About, was it Josh and Drake? Or Drake and Josh, the kid that played Drake? Did you see that shit? And what this crazy shit that was going on a kid show on Nickelodeon? If they're doing that to kids, you don't think they're doing it to adult entertainers? And even if it's not just the sexual deviance, Quiet on the Set was the name of this documentary. And it had to do with shows on Nickelodeon and crazy shit that was going on. It's really worth watching. It's disgusting. The biggest story that comes from it is one of the people that worked on the set on the show, I think All That, and then worked on Drake and Josh, was literally committing the most aggressive sexual crimes against the actor that played Drake for a long time. And then, once charges were filed, basically a bunch of people that were co-workers with this guy that was committing these heinous crimes sort of defended him. And then, after he got basically a slap on the wrist, he was not Dan Schneider. He was the guy that was running it, right? But he wasn't the one accused of doing this to Drake Bell. Then after this dude went to jail for it and got a slap on the wrist, he got hired by Disney. But then Dan Schneider, who run these shows, it's insane the shit they were doing. The weird sexual activities, even on camera, they were making these kids do. I think one of them was Ariana Grande had to suck a potato. And when you look at it, you're like, holy shit, it is unmistakable what they're alluding to. Or Dan Schneider would do clips with them in a hot tub. They're all clothed, but it's like, what the fuck? Maybe Dan Schneider's. Brian Peck was the name of the guy. And I watched that. I was aghast. I was just like, holy shit. And it wasn't just the females. They had young actors that were men on there that were talking about how uncomfortable. It felt sexual and uncomfortable. And for kids. So imagine what the starlet, the 20-year-old attractive woman's dealing with. Fuck, we even live in a world where one of the most badass looking dudes that I can imagine is Terry Crews. You know who Terry Crews is? Yeah, let me show you a picture of Terry Crews. He's hilarious. I really like Terry Crews. Funny actor. Macho Camacho, baby. This guy said that he had pressured into weird sexual stuff. That dude. Intel Wild, thanks so much for the super chat for $20. Says, saw you debating Andrew on the Crucible family. Just wanted to give me some support. Thank you, man. Really appreciate it. Crucible people always welcome here. Love you guys. Andrew's great too. I remember Terry Tate. That was not Terry Crews, but I do remember Terry Tate. You killed the Joe, you make some mo. I remember that shit. It was funny. Now, I'm not one to delve into this shit a lot. I'm not. And people that watch me know that. But I do think, and I will applaud, people that I see from a community that I have no attachment to, which are black entertainers, that have been coming out pretty vocally like, there's some fucked up shit that goes on in these industries. And we're treated like shit. People like 50 Cent, people like Ice Cube, people like Cat Williams, people like Monique, the Wayans that have come out. Sometimes they're talking about creepy sexual shit. Sometimes they're just talking about financial stuff. And I sympathize. I do. Now, do I ultimately think, that shows that this arrest of Diddy is going to lead to some high-level people, like in politics, being brought down? No chance. I think the most likely scenario, and this is pure speculation on my part, is people in positions of power that are worried about the information that Diddy has want him silenced, just like they wanted Epstein. And the first step to silencing is arresting. If that doesn't work, has anyone checked on Diddy's mental health? Know what I'm saying? Mel Gibson used to talk about some of this crazy stuff as well. I know Rick Moranis left Hollywood. I didn't know it was because of that, though. Rick Moranis also hilarious. How would that have been for a show? Rick Moranis with the Wayans brothers. I would have tuned into that. I thought it was funny. I can't show a video. What am I thinking? I was going to show a Rick Moranis sketch that I thought was funny, but Megyn Kelly said Epstein's alive. Maybe. I didn't hear that, but maybe that's true. What's your IP? Diddy was arrested to take away from Trump being shot. I don't think so, though. I think there's more to it. Yeah. Suge Knight. Now, I'm not saying Suge Knight's a good guy. Maybe he did the shit he's accused of, which is why he's in jail. But I think Suge Knight seems like a legitimate, I'm not saying this in a negative, though I'm certainly not saying it as a positive. I'm just trying to, Suge Knight seems like a real gangster. Like the type of dude that's like, fuck you, I'm going to run the show, and I'm going to come at anyone who tries. And I don't think that would be very much like. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Suge Knight led Death Row Records. Was that his label? And maybe that was seen as a threat to the traditional studios that were making all this big bucks. They didn't want people that were involved in that community to branch out on their own and then start, taking their bucks. I don't know. Maybe it was seen as a perceived threat. But I did hear someone talking about today that Suge Knight told P. Diddy, dude, they're going to bring you down. Because you've been filming all this shit, and they know that you're a threat to them, and so they're going to take you down. And I saw someone saying that basically Suge told Diddy, when you get to jail, you better man up, or you're going to be, it won't go well for you. Use more colorful language than that. The FBI arrests these blackmail rings so they can get the blackmail. Maybe so. Maybe they were encouraging the blackmail in the first place. Looks like that was the case with Epstein. When did I become the bridge between white trash and East Coast, West Coast rap conflicts? You got it, wife. There I am. I like this debate that's going on in the chat about having a beard versus wearing makeup. I should just sit back and read that. That's some fucking entertainment. But, so, you know, that's what I think about the Diddy situation. I know there are people out there like, this is it, man. It's just like Epstein. Powerful people, they're about to go down. We'll see. I'm very skeptical that this FBI that covered for Epstein is going to take any big dogs down on this. There might be the odd entertainer or producer that goes down, but anybody of like real clout? All right, anything else people wanted to talk about briefly? I'd like to be out of here by 11. My wife's still up, so it'll be nice to get downstairs. What's R. Kelly up to? Listen, all joking aside, I had this conversation one time. It's a serious conversation. At what point do you have to dislike something because the person that created it's such a shithead? R. Kelly was found guilty, but even beyond that, I think R. Kelly, if you look into any of the shit, he was a really bad dude, right? But does that mean Remix to Ignition's not a banger song? Because it is. It's still a banger. I think it should become public use, you know? It's the remix to Ignition, fresh and fresh and hot out the kitchen. Mean and rolling them some, got every man in here wishing. I don't know. It's catchy as shit. It's not really my style of music, but Cosby Show's not funny anymore. Cosby Show's still funny, you know? You know, royalties to the victims. There you go. Rob, in my opinion, it's been the most egregious erosion of our liberties snuck in through the radar during the Biden administration. That's a good question. I don't know that there's a specific law that I would point to. I would say the normalcy of collusion of censorship with institutions such as social media, I think, is laying the groundwork for what will be the biggest threat. Because when I went to college for media, what's up, Alex? How you doing, man? Good to hear from you. Hope everything's going great. When I went to college for media, one of the things all my lefty professors, and they were almost all lefties, they used to talk all the time about gatekeeping. And there was this is like 2002, 2003, they were like, you know, 6 major corporations control 90% of the media in this country and the news in this country and blah, 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 and it's gatekeeping. The internet's kind of the great equalizer in that. With all of the problems we see of censorship online and things of that nature, understand this. What I'm doing right now would have been impossible for someone like me 20 years ago. Even though technically YouTube would have existed. The technology wasn't as such or as known as such that someone like me, who's just some fat nobody from rural Pennsylvania, would be able to be talking to 200 people right now. It just wouldn't happen. And it's not just me. It's all of us could talk to each other. And now you can even see with the platform like X, all of a sudden shit that you would have never heard of if you were reliant on ABC or the New York Times or Fox News, all of a sudden people are talking about it. So it's a unique opportunity where the technology has outpaced the control over the technology. But the institutions realize that, and they're coming at that technology as hard as possible. They want to gatekeep it just like they could gatekeep the news before it. That's the goal. And for me, that's the biggest threat. Because if you can't discuss with other people corruption or politics or cultural issues, then it's harder to sort of have movement on those issues. What's my position on lockdowns and jab mandates? Yes. Seeing as how I said I'm libertarian adjacent. New sub. I was vehemently against lockdowns from day one and vaccine mandates. And not only that, I even argued against Trump, who I thought was paying lip service to me of lockdowns, much to the chagrin of many of my supporters back then. I don't know anyone who has been as consistently and staunchly against lockdowns and vaccine mandates than me. Do I think you should be allowed to take the vaccine? Absolutely. Have I said that the vaccines are a conspiracy that are designed to kill everyone? No. I don't weigh in on it. I basically, if pressed, think the vaccine probably is dangerous for people that don't really need it. But like any medication, there's a cost-benefit analysis. And if you're 80 years old with COPD and a case of COVID would have a significant chance of killing you or having a significant effect, maybe the risk of taking the vaccine outweighs. I don't know. I think that you should be allowed to take the vaccine, that you should consult a medical professional that you trust, and make the best possible decision for yourself going forward. And if that's take the vaccine, I'm not going to pick on you. And if that's not to take the vaccine, I'm not going to pick on you. My only stance is the government should not be forcing people to take it. The government should not be forcing people to be locked down. You're a doctor, right? I am not a doctor. I am a fat nobody. If anyone's watching an obviously overweight person like me for medical advice, they're making a huge fucking mistake, which is why I don't deign to give medical advice, which is why I did not tell one person, take the vaccine or don't take the vaccine. I said, find a medical professional you trust that can discuss your unique situation and make the best possible decision you can make for yourself. That's what I said. I'm just against the government forcing you. What about companies that force people? Obviously, I'm against that as well. Would I have the same position if COVID were 1,000 times worse? It depends. Do I think that there is a point where lockdowns would be justified? If, like, for example, let's take it to the extreme. A bioweapon is unleashed on New York, and it has a 95% lethality rate, and it's incredibly infectious. Does the government have the right to temporarily lock down and quarantine those people? Probably. If it was so lethal that if you didn't get the vaccine, it would spread to even people that did have the vaccine, have a high chance of it, maybe. I don't know that people would self-lockdown. Many people would, but many people wouldn't. For example, watch like zombie movies. Oh, zombie outbreak in Raccoon City. They put a gate around Raccoon City. People try to escape. You don't want to be left in there with the zombies where you're likely to die. So you're like, I can get the fuck out of here. Contagion. There you go. Turning the frogs gay. Darth Ducky identifies as beautiful. You and me both. That's not true. The government was trying to force vaccine. Biden had a vaccine mandate. It got rejected in the courts, but he tried. And certainly the government was telling people to take the vaccine. Sean left his safe house to go to the Winchester, but they had a gun there. I love that idea. At one point in my life, that would have been me. Oh, fuck, a zombie outbreak. Let's get to the bar. There's a bunch of booze there. Call your friends. All of us will head to the bar. We'll drink our way through it. I could have seen me with that plan at one point. Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it, man. I hope everything's going great for you. Get the Alex Jones shit out of it. My wife. She likes Alex Jones. She's pretending. Am I going to use ChatGPT, Rob? First off, my name is officially Rob GPT, and of course, unbeknownst to you all, I'm like the fastest typer in the world. So everything I'm saying is literally me just putting prompts into ChatGPT. It's the only way that I could even hang in there with someone as intellectually superior as me as Destiny. It's all I could do. All of these lefties are clearly so much smarter than me and so much better at debating. Also, I could, literally everything I'm saying right now, it's ChatGPT spitting it out. So yeah, you got me. Sure, there were companies that mandated things that weren't purely a government mandate. I won't deny that. Intel Wild, super chat for $5. Thanks so much. What are my thoughts on the Transformers? He, she, theys. Not the cartoon. You know, when I was growing up, there was a Transformers cartoon called Beast Wars, and it was like sort of rudimentary, like computer animation, like Pixar type stuff. My dad fucking loved that show. It was kind of funny. I remember that. Trans issues. Yeah, be careful of terms of service, particularly on a place like Twitch. Here's what I'll say on trans issue. I know many people in my life that have all sort of ailments, including mental ailments. I work with people with developmental disabilities who disproportionately have a lot of ailments, including mental ailments. I do not treat people like shit because they have some sort of ailment. For example, if you're bipolar, I'm not going to treat you like shit just because you're bipolar. I wouldn't do that. But I'm also not going to pretend the voices that you're hearing are real. I hope that sufficiently answers what my thoughts are. Isn't it great that leftists are so smart that they turn down? You're not going to need it to debate Kyle, though he's a normie. Oh, no, I need Rob. Rob GPT needs the AI for everything. Rob, I've recently discovered in the last few months that I have to say you're the gold standard among conservative streamers. I've become a fan of the stream. Your knowledge is second to none. Thank you so much. DMC, Devil May Cry? Is that what DMC? I like that game. But maybe DMC. Run DMC? Yeah, I wouldn't say that my knowledge is second to none. I think that I'm grotesquely uninformed. I think I should read much more. And I used to read and research way more before I was a father and before I was working like 70, 80 hours a week. I think that my strong suit is that I'm able to have sort of a logical understanding of sort of the flow of argumentation and understanding how people interpret data. And I have enough of a knowledge base and I'm authentic and telling the truth, that it's appealing to people because I'm able to basically call out bullshit and things like that. But I do appreciate it. I do think that I try to be informed on the things I'm talking about. But for example, probably 60% of my audience would have a better understanding of like what a Fed cutting rates actually means and how it exactly looks. Do I have a problem with how it's pushed on us constantly? Of course I do. Absolutely. Absolutely have a problem with it, particularly how it's pushed on children. 9 a.m. Pacific time, okay? For what, Manu? 9 a.m. Pacific time. Must be talking to someone else. I don't see you. Do you have a... okay, Manu. I don't know what you're talking about. How do you know the information you're reading is true? It's a great question. How do you know you're not in a simulation right now? Yeah, it's tough. For example, you can see in real time almost consensus on stories that you know are bullshit. For example, Trump said to drink bleach, but he didn't. But if you could see how in real time narratives get formed like that aren't necessarily true, how can you trust history books? It's an interesting question. The best you can do is try to understand the players, try to understand where information's coming from, and understand that there's going to be a bias from anyone, and do your best to try to look at counter arguments and come to what you think is the truth. Thanks, Concerned American. I appreciate it. That's why I like debating other people that disagree with me, because it's a good check to make sure what I'm saying is true. Because if it's clearly not true, but what do you do if someone's like not good faith? What do you do if they're just going to be like, no? And I can't tell you how many times I'll have this happen. Like in real time, this has happened to me over and over again. And the people that have followed me for like more than a year will back this up. Probably at least 5 or 6 times I've had this almost exact verbatim conversation with people in my chat. I don't know how you could even remotely say that Trump's okay. He told people to drink bleach. No, he didn't. He never said to drink bleach. Yes, he did. I heard him. Okay, you sure? Sure about that? Okay, let's look. So I go, I'm like, all right, here's the transcript of what he said. Can you show me where the word bleach is? Anywhere in this transcript? Well, okay, he didn't say drink bleach. He said drink disinfectants. But that's the same thing. Well, one, it's not. There are other disinfectants that aren't bleach. Second, can you tell me where he says the word drink? Well, okay, he doesn't say drink. He says inject, so he's talking about injecting disinfectant, and that clearly means bleach. Now, that's not true. There's all sorts of disinfectants that aren't bleach. Yeah, but none of them are medicinal. That's not true at all. Here's a list of disinfectants that are regularly injected in people medicinally. Well, but he wasn't talking about that. That's true. He was talking about UV light as a disinfectant. That's what he was talking about. So he never said to drink bleach. Well, he said Nazis are good people. That's not true. He didn't say Nazis are good people. Yeah, he did. Okay, let's go. How many times did Trump speak on this, give official statements after this? 3. Let's go to speech 1. Does he say Nazis are good people here? No, he doesn't say that. In fact, he condemns racism, hatred, etc. on both sides. That's what he says. But that wasn't enough for the media. So let's go to speech 2. And here he directly calls out groups like the KKK, neo-Nazis, etc. Says he condemns them. Then that wasn't enough. Speech 3 he's giving is sort of, unlike Kamala Harris, what Trump would do is he actually talks to the press and answers questions from them. So he's out there giving an economic plan, and they start screaming at him, why didn't it take you so long to condemn Nazis? Why did it take you so long to condemn racists? And he's like, it didn't. So he's going back and forth with them, and they won't talk about the economy. And he makes a salient point, which the greater point, the people say the good people on both sides, that's not the most salient point. The real point that he was making was there were bad people on both sides. That's what Trump was saying. That's where the frustration comes from, because the narrative that was being spun out of there is Charlottesville was this one side of Trump supporters that are all racist Nazis, and these noble people came to challenge them, and these racist Nazis viciously attacked these people. And that's not what happened. Many of the people on the other side were like Black Lives Matter Antifa type people that literally showed up with shields, ball bats, etc. to engage in armed conflicts. Shitheads fighting shitheads. But because the media is lionizing these people, it encouraged, and we saw violent left-wingers in places like Berkeley, previous to that were doing this shit, showing up and beating the shit out of people and accusing them to be Nazis. We saw it happen with the Patriot Prayer people in Portland all the time. So Trump was making the point there are good and bad people on both sides. And then reporters like, you're saying that your side that Charlotte's the Nazis were the same as the left and blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm not talking about the Nazis. Clearly they're bad people. Over and over and over and over. And then they'll just go on to the next hoax. Intel Wild, thank you so much. $5 super chat says, I gotta know your thoughts on Destiny, the blue-haired wolf coomer. Holy shit, I've been talking about Destiny a lot lately. Okay, first off, I'll stick around a little longer. Someone asked me my thoughts on Sitch and Adam. Okay, we'll get to Destiny because there was a super chat. Here's my thoughts on Sitch and Adam. I like Sitch and Adam. I think that they have a good show that covers a range of topics. I think they have an institutional bias. So more than they're centrist, I think that they're sort of a fan of the status quo. And they're hesitant to believe things that you might consider a conspiracy. So, for example, if they hear someone say, oh, the FBI's out to get Trump, they're going to require a very high, their bias will mean they'll require a very high burden of proof before they would believe something like that. I think almost an impossible burden of proof, because oftentimes the evidence necessary to convince someone like them would have to come from the very law enforcement agencies that you're impugning in the first place. So, for example, if the FBI decides to leave Hillary's team off the hook for illegally destroying subpoenaed evidence, and someone says, well, can you prove that Hillary Clinton was connected to that? And I say, well, no, because she was never interviewed because the FBI gave everyone immunity. They would say, see, that proves there's nothing to see here. I don't think it does. So I think that's where their bias lies. I think Sitch is much better at debating these stuff than Adam. I think Adam has a tendency to sort of be out of his depth on a lot of these topics that I've talked about, issues of corruption and stuff, so he's going to meme his way through. I think they're thin-skinned. I think that they will criticize, quick to jump the gun and threaten to kick you off their channel or say that you're a really bad faith person, etc., etc. If you do something that they think is inappropriate, like you say that they're biased or you say something that they think is a misrepresentation of their argument. But if they do the same thing, it's completely different. It's not a big deal. But ultimately, I like Sitch and Adam. And there's certainly criticisms you can make of me flying off the handle and things like that. So that's ultimately what I think of Sitch and Adam. What do I think of Destiny? I think Destiny is an incredibly talented person. I think that he is more talented than me in the area of entertainment. That you could say what you want about him. You could say he was astroturfed, that the algorithm manipulated for him, blah, blah, blah. He has done something, which is he has built an organic audience based on the fact that people find him informative and or entertaining. I think more of it's entertaining than informative. I think people like to watch him fly off the handle, yell at people, the normal types of videos he does. And I sincerely respect that. I think that that's an incredible achievement. And he has earned his audience and he's earned his livelihood. And I don't have a problem with that. I think that he's very thin-skinned and he has a very fragile ego, which is why he'll do things like rage quit or blacklist people that he thinks give him difficulty. He's more likely to rage quit against someone that gives him difficulty in an argument than he is someone that's particularly egregious. That's my feeling. That's why someone like me gets rage quit on. He'll have me on and say I'm a decent person when we're not really debating. And like he had me on to talk about my job. That stuff's all good. But as soon as I give pushback on an issue that he thinks important and he thinks that he's struggling a little, then all of a sudden the gloves come off. I think that he's prone to outburst and hyperbole and that he constantly doubles down, which is why he got in this spiral when Biden was having a bad news cycle where he ended up saying Trump supporters are effing around finding out, haha, make fun of this firefighter that got killed in the assassination attempt. I think that he's a good debater, but he's not the best debater on many of these issues. For example, the issues of corruption and legal issues, Pisco's a better debater than him, and I think his ego won't allow that. I think that he has to be the big dog in his group, and inevitably, when you see someone that kind of agrees with him, the fallout for them will be even worse than the fallout of someone like me and him. I think that his audience many of them have a significant, as Andrew Wilson would say, parasocial relationship with him, and the intensity and the hyperbole that he uses, many of them use as well, except they don't have the control to not go all the way like maybe Destiny does. So they'll, but is that sufficient? I don't know. Any other questions? I'm gonna run here. But anything specific you want to ask me about that? I do think he's a pretty good debater, but he's not as good as Pisco on most of those issues, and there will be a fallout. Just saying. Just saying. So one more time, for those that are interested, I'm going to put that link up to my friend, Conservative Carnage, a friend of the show. He's having some financial difficulties right now. You could read his PayPal here that explains his goal. Make a decision to donate if you like. But I know he would appreciate it and I would appreciate it. So just check it out. Obviously, you're under no obligation. If you're in a tight financial spot, clearly don't give money to me. Don't give money to anyone else. Sure, Nico Pluto. Thanks, man. Thanks, Concerned American. I hope people enjoy it. Tomorrow night, we'll do a call-in show. Now, the call-in show depends on how many people call in. If there's only one person, I'll talk to them for an hour or so if they want. If there's multiple people, we might have to limit that to 10 minutes per person or something like that. It'll be anything you want to talk about. If you want to talk about something you agree with me, fine. Within reason. Like, if it's just something I have nothing to add on, like, if you're going to call in and ramble about flat Earth, I'll probably be like, okay. Much to say. No problem, Conservative Carnage. So you have your chance to talk to me. It'll be through Discord. Will it be more debatey or more combo? Like, it depends on who calls in. If it's people that disagree with me, it'll be more debatey. If it's people that agree with me, it'll probably be more conversation like. But I try to do one of those shows a week. People seem to like it. So yeah, Bridge, I do speak too fast, though. It's something I need to work on, and that's because, here, I'll do this. Let's see if this gets me a donation. This was policy debate. This is how policy debate sounded, which I did in college. Significant confusion, lack of supervision, a delayed notification. IG reports skewer State Department's handling of Robert Malley's suspension. This is Credo in 2024. State Department grossly mishandled suspension schedule plaguing Grand Malley, Robert Malley, and continued classified information sensitive data discipline according to Inspector General report of Washington Free Media Department's Assistant General said the congressional staff was Wednesday closed door advocacy the agency missteps of Malley security clearance pulled in 2023 and information classified the briefing revealed that Malley engaged in classified activities George killed and representing breach of federal protocol according to the attendees. Malley shows are treated differently than other people scored a major breach in the State Department and made information about the situation withheld from State Department officials including young deputy and someone who attended the briefing. Inspector General further determined that Malley was still performing his official duties until revoked and even the State Department protocol the briefing accompanying the reported rare window of the Malley suspension the circumstances surrounding the Iran envoy security clearance originally revoked in late April 2023, but even the State Department keeping it hidden from public view 2 months. Process deviated from the Department policy. Inspector General determined the Department deviated from ways that suspension are typically delivered by delaying notification of Malley to senior department which requires of suspension according to the report of the board. The delay allowed the opportunity to get classified information call after the suspension was approved. The use notified secure telephone call revoked the fates April 21st and Malley security clearance revoked, including White House officials in late May, a month after Malley clearance revoked. He included in the email with the Undersecretary of Political Affairs Victoria Nuland regarding the politics Secretary of State Blake Nuland was beginning. I'm unaware of this clearance clearance special to work with them in unsensitive matters, special envoy demanded. Advice was sought regularly and provided issues and media talking points, congressional testimony investigators found. So that's how you're trained to speak. Now, I could train you to speak that fast when reading something, but the question is, are you able to speak that fast when you're coming up with the arguments? So oftentimes what happens, people learn to read really fast, but then when it comes to coming up and thinking on their feet and reading fast, they're not able to do it. So what you'll see is new debaters that'll be able to just train themselves to read really fast, but they can't think that fast. So when it gets to being able to talk about themselves, all of a sudden they'll and then what you find out is that the first arguments they're making when they're just reading fast means that their mind can't keep up with that. So they instead learned a parlor trick to be able to spread out their opponents by talking as fast as possible and reading these things, but they're not able to keep up with that when they're talking. So one of the things that you'll see was when it came to reading papers, I wasn't able to read as fast as many of the other people, wasn't able to understand it. But when it came to coming up with my own thoughts and being able to come up, I was actually pretty fast when it came to those sort of things. So one of the problems that happens is once you talk like this over and over in debate, when you then do a regular conversation with people, you tend to talk faster. So even in my daily life, I end up talking faster from just having a conversation with my wife. And then when I get on here debating and I get excited, I default back to this mode where I'm talking as fast as this. The problem is, it's oftentimes that comes across as gish galloping or talking, saying things too fast. But one of the things I try to do is always focus on one particular topic and maybe give varying points to buttress that specific topic. And one of the things I try to do is make my words count. So oftentimes what you see is when I'm in a panel and there's like 14, 15 points that I need to address because I haven't talked in 10, 15 minutes, I'll try to address almost every one of those points. And then unfortunately, one of the things that can happen is people lose sight of the fact that I'm actually making informed points from that. And even though I'm saying a lot of words, all my words are counting. Whereas many people, as that user said, will be able to spin a bunch of things like this and talk really fast, but they're just saying the same thing over and over again and aren't making it a definitive negative points like I'm trying to do. So I mean, you didn't catch it. What I'm saying there is it's easy to read fast, but it's hard when you're just talking to talk that fast because then your brain has to be working at a level that reading sort of you're on autopilot. And I'm honestly, my wife says that is slow for the highest level of policy debate. But when it happens then is like if I'm talking, this probably is like a normal speed of talking. And in my head right now, it sounds like I'm in slow motion. Maybe I am a little right now, but that's how it sounds. Could I repeat that? No, thanks. Which is why it's always funny. Like people are like, wow, Destiny's really fast. Trust me, I'm faster than Destiny if I want to be. I am talking in slow motion there. Okay, well, there you go. No meth needed. I don't even do a lot of caffeine. I drank a Celsius sparkling water before I came up here. And then other than that, good old-fashioned water for this guy. That has nothing to do with talking down. I'm admitting that one of the things that's stupid about policy debate is it's irrelevant to communication to the average person because you're talking like an auctioneer. And what good is it in a game of persuasion if the people can't understand you? But because policy debate's a bunch of people sniffing their own farts, and at first someone would have talked like this in a debate, and what you realize is, well, if I talk a little faster, I can get more arguments out. So then you started talking like this, and then the person that was listening to you was someone that's judging you that was involved in debate, so they're able to keep up a little faster than the average person. And then when a generation later on that, what you realize is you could talk a little faster because that person that's judging you, again, is someone who talked a little faster than the average person, so you can talk like this. And then it turns out that next person can be able to talk like this because it turns out they're able to understand even a little faster, and so you're able to talk like this because you're trying to get as many arguments. Then finally you see that you can talk as fast as humanly possible because you'd be able to talk like this because the piece of the ones listened is very specialized, and that means that the average person is no longer able to understand anything you're saying. They think it's ridiculous because you're talking like an auctioneer. In addition to talking like this, everything that you're talking about in debate is hyperbolic, so you'll always talk about things leading to nuclear war, to the point that if you say that if we pass this job bill, it would end up leading to some sort of nuclear war that would occur in China, then you have all sort of things like critical debate, things like that are philosophical objections to basically the war that's being able to set. So you have all these debates that result in the fact that, like, because you use the United States federal government, that means you're racist. If you didn't talk about giving the land back to Native Americans, it doesn't matter what the topic is, that you should always lose because you're offensive to Native Americans. And then you have things that are called performance debate, which are things that are seemingly unconnected whatsoever. So you might have someone that raps or read poetry. I had people that would simulate gay sex in front. I had people that would try to burn the American flag. I had people that literally shit in a bag one time and tried to light that shit on fire to say that it was some sort of fuel source. These are the sort of ridiculous things that happen in policy debate because it's so insular. People are just debating amongst themselves, and the average audience crowd isn't able to see it. And if they walk in and actually see this shit, they would be like, oh my God, this is completely worthless. We're told that these are some of the smartest kids in the country, but they're in here talking like auctioneers, saying about all this shit that no one really believes. How's this good for society? That's what happens. So you have this fucking, it just continues to regress more and more insular. It's like modern art. Now all of a sudden, the people that are considered like the most talented artists are just throwing shit on it. And the average person's like, I don't fucking get it. But people in the art community are like, oh yeah, I get it. I get it. This is deep. That's what debate is. That's what NDTC to policy debate is. So it says John Cena. And I assume you're the real John Cena. You can't just take someone's name online. You don't want to see policy debate. It's nonsense. And like I said, they're faster than I was there, and sometimes more annoying. So big breaths, like, or people. A lot of people, I can't do it. People used to pen twirl while they're speaking, or people do things like this. They'll be talking like this, and they'll have all these weird nervous tics. My debate partner, not my long-time debate partner, but when I was my roommate and I debated with a couple times, he watched me debate one time and said I kept grabbing my junk when I talked, and I believed him. Because you're talking so fast, you're not paying attention, and people do have weird nervous tics. So I was like, oh my God. I'm like feeling myself up. Of course, he made it all up, but I felt like shit for an entire night. It was like, oh my God, I do that? And then finally he was like, no, I'm just fucking with you. But I believed it. Secular to talk debate's probably not going to happen. Kyle put out a challenge to anyone that wanted, conservative that wanted to debate whether or not the rhetoric led to the Trump assassination attempts. I accepted it publicly. He hasn't got back to me. Get a side job of an auctioneer. Maybe. Probably pay better. Yeah, I saw Jim Bob put that message out there as well. So, all right, we out. Let's raid someone on Twitch. I still don't know how to raid people on YouTube, so let's check this real quick. Hot and fresh out the kitchen, gum and rolling, man in here wishing. Oh, come on, be quiet. Who we raiding? There's my boy. Oh, you know what? Let's raid my brother. Jojo Geeker is my brother. He's not a politics streamer. He's a game streamer. Good guy, though. I think you'll enjoy him. I think I got all the good looks, so don't judge him for his visage. I appreciate all of you. I really do. Tomorrow night, call-in show, between 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern time. Tune in. If you got something to say to me, I'll put up the Discord link. You can call my Discord show. Even if you don't have Discord, maybe you can do a Google Voice chat or something like that, but it should be fun. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm humbled that my audience is growing. I really am. So it means a lot to me. So thank you guys so much. And hopefully we continue to grow together, and it's programming that you all continue to like. So we'll see you all tomorrow evening. Thanks for sticking around with me late tonight. As always, have a good one.